Good morning, everyone joining us today, both in person and online, and welcome to the NOAC Good Practice in Local Government seminar. Once again, we are holding this event in the impressive setting of Kilkenny Castle, kindly hosted by OPW and Kilkenny County Council. My name is Claire Gavin, and I, along with Eddie O'Loughlin, are the MCs for today. There will be two sessions today, and at the end of each session, there will be an opportunity for the guests here to ask questions from the floor, or for the online presence, they can email the questions to pmo@lgma.ie, and these will be given to the panel. Without further ado, I call on Councillor Pat Fitzpatrick, Cathaoirleach of Kilkenny County Council and President of AILG, to say a few words to open the event.
Good morning, everybody, and it's delighted to see everyone here on this beautiful morning in this beautiful setting, and we're very proud of this setting, and we're very proud of Kilkenny. Minister Noonan, Minister of State for Heritage and Electoral Reform, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure as Cathaoirleach of Kilkenny County Council to welcome you back to Kilkenny City for this year's Good Practice in Local Government seminar. We are honoured that NOAC has chosen to return to this beautiful venue once more. I thank NOAC and the Local Government Management Agency for inviting me here to address you and welcome you to this event this morning. As an elected member, we get the opportunity to discuss the performance of our local authority when the NOAC annual report is presented to us at our monthly meeting. Kilkenny County Council is similar to other local authorities, facing a difficult few years ahead in decision-making on the finances as our country goes through a period of financial uncertainty with rising inflation and increased energy costs. Local authorities will continue to provide a range of new supports and grants to businesses, offer resilience and well-being supports to the community, and to work to facilitate the changes to the public realm in the interests of public health and safety. I must pay tribute to our staff and all local authority staff throughout the country for continuing to achieve such high standards despite the challenging times. We will continue to build on our progress to innovate and deliver quality services. In my other capacity as President of the Association of Irish Local Government, the national representative body for the 949 local councillors, I was delighted to have had an early meeting with the NOAC and their local government efficiency and reform working group very early in the term. It is important that NOAC and the local authority elected members work closely together, have greater engagement and contribute to the work of NOAC. This should include greater engagement at local between NOAC and elected members at our mayoral, Cathaoirleach or indeed CPG level in relation to the local government authority reports. Both bodies agree that there is a need to build awareness with our elected members on the excellent work of NOAC and the reports produced. We have already commenced an information campaign with our members on the work of NOAC, and we hope that NOAC will contribute to our member training programme in 2023 and beyond. In conclusion, I want to thank you for your attention and for your commitment to improving in the provision of local government service to the public. And I hope you find this event beneficial and wish you continued success in your endeavours into the future. Gurmil Mahagut.
The Vermagin. Agus fáilte fithe go Kilkenny agus Castlán Kilkenny. Dús bhhatnam cogádas rá go bháil Cathaoirleach Cóirla Quinnig Pat Fitzpatrick tóga ar uachtar on AILG. Congratulations, Pat, on your election to President of AILG. first of all, before I start, and I know you're going to have a busy year as Cathaoirleach, look, and certainly a doubly busy year now, so I wish you all the very best. First of all, it's a great privilege to be here, and it's a great privilege to have you here in my home city of Kilkenny, in the beautiful surroundings here of the Parade Tower in Kilkenny Castle. I think it's your third time to use Kilkenny Castle and the Parade Tower, so you obviously love it here, and it's great to have you back. It is a spectacular venue for any event like this. Thank Anne Tehan and the team here at the OPW locally for, as always, the warm welcome that they provide. I feel it would be remiss of me not to mention today's seminar has been organised in collaboration with the National Oversight and Audit Commission and the Local Government Management Agency, and has been held as part of the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform's Innovation Week. I'm sure you're aware and appreciative of the excellent work carried out by Michael and the NOAC board, and the vital role that is providing an independent oversight of the local government sector. Their various reports, such as the NOAC Performance Indicator Report, provide a valuable insight into local government that is very accessible on their website. These information reports allow local authorities to analyse not just their own efforts and performance in comparison to their peer authorities, they also allow you to observe what initiatives and processes are being implemented across the local government sector and how initiatives that could be of value to your own area. This ability to view progress and to compare annually and nationally is really vital in the continued success of local government in terms of performance. NOAC also engages directly with the local government sector through regular meetings with local authorities, such as those through the scrutiny process and validation visits. These engagements are a great example of collaboration with local government, and such fruitful engagements provide NOAC with vital feedback on the challenges that local authorities face, and they are many, the environments in which they operate, and allow NOAC to take on board the feedback when carrying out their work. I believe that this Good Practice seminar is a wonderful avenue to highlight examples of innovation and best practice. I had a quick glance through the programme there, and it looks really interesting. The sharing of experiences is essential to continually bring about improvements to the delivery of services to our citizens. The speakers here today will outline some of the fascinating exemplars of good practice in local government, and hopefully give us something to reflect on and learn new ways that allow you to continue to provide the best service to citizens. Such projects cover a diverse range of topics such as information sharing, the amazing expeditious response by local authorities to the Ukrainian crisis, and other projects on GDPR, sustainability, community engagement and public participation. I know that there are many other excellent projects that could have been chosen for the seminar, and it's unfortunate it isn't possible to hear all of them. However, I think this event is an excellent opportunity to consider and to explore and discuss and implement, if appropriate, initiatives that could be of assistance to your own local authority, be it rural or urban area, large or small. I think it cannot be emphasised enough the huge role local authorities play and have in supporting and rolling out government initiatives during the past years of the pandemic. The Restart grant schemes, commercial rates waivers, community call initiatives and outreach services and adaptations to library services all played a major role during periods of restrictions, and such initiatives were carried out while maintaining vital services. And many of these changes that were brought in have been made permanent. They're contentious, obviously. There's the whole issue of that contested space, of public space that we have to deal with. And Kilkenny, like Michael and I we were talking outside, like other municipalities and other towns, urban areas, that's a huge challenge. But there's no doubt that COVID brought about a different way of trying to do things and trying to learn and learn as we go. And I think that's something that local government has continued to do very, very well and performed extremely well throughout the pandemic. Moreover, local authorities are key in helping businesses and communities adapt to new way of living and working in a post-restriction environment, such as initiatives to encourage the return to urban centres, the creation of remote working hubs, engaging with local communities in both online and in-person formats, and continuing to expand on initiatives and learnings that developed during COVID, such as increased pedestrianisation, the increased rollout of facilities to encourage active travel, all while dealing with the other challenges, such as increasing operating costs. And again, you know, these are issues, and again, I'm just speaking from our own experience here in Kilkenny, how we engage with the public on this, I think, is critically important, and I think there's lots of really exciting opportunities ahead. I would also like to highlight the highly efficient work local authorities are doing in helping Ukrainian refugees who are arriving here. Initiatives such as identifying vacant buildings that could be used for accommodation and the Community Response Forum, which ensures effective communication and information sharing in coordination of local community and voluntary actions in providing community support to those fleeing the illegal invasion of Ukraine. Such challenges in quick succession and the manner in which they're being dealt with by local authorities, all the while providing essential services to our communities, are deeply appreciated and show the huge level of commitment that local government sector is providing here in Ireland. I think that the presentation on the response today will be of value to all, and we know that we are facing huge challenges in relation to this crisis. It's ongoing, and it, to all intents and purposes, it looks like a war that could continue for some protracted period. And in that regard, it is important that we continue to learn and adapt and to work together, to collaborate. I think there's a huge challenge ahead, no doubt about it, but I think we are up to that challenge. Yesterday at Heritage Ireland 2030, our first summit on Heritage Ireland, again we looked at the work that local authorities, the critical work that local authorities are doing in relation to climate change and biodiversity, built and archaeological heritage. And the overriding thing that came from me from that event was, yes, we have the national policy now, a new Heritage Ireland 2030 policy, but it's at local level, at local authority level, that we see the greatest opportunity for engagement and the greatest opportunity to have in a broad suite of services, heritage services that local authorities provide. And I really am excited with the work that's going on. We heard a lot of it yesterday, and it's hugely ambitious, and I want to pay tribute to all of the local authorities that we met there yesterday. I look forward to in the future seeing the continued commitment and innovation of local government and wish continued success in your remit. The challenges around climate, around the biodiversity emergency, the templates of using the Sustainable Development Goals as a guide, I think are really important. And again, I spent 16 years on local authority here in Kilkenny County Council. Many of my colleagues are here, and I think there's been such amazing innovation at local authority level, again, in this regard. We have to adapt quickly, we have to change quickly, we have to make these innovations and bring people along with us through public engagement. There's no doubt, as I said again, it's hugely challenging, but I think from the work I'm seeing going on here in Kilkenny, I have been deeply impressed by that. And again, I want to thank you all for your commitment, your hard work during a very challenging period for our country. I have huge confidence that the local authority sector is up to this huge challenge, and that there's no doubt that the NOAC oversight and the important role that NOAC play in working collaboratively with local authorities to try and achieve targets, but also go beyond that and to ensure that the highest level of public service that we can provide is there and will be there into the future. There's no doubt there's a whole transformation underway, but local government always has been, since the foundation of the state, always has been at the forefront of that change and will be into the future. So I wish you well for today's deliberations, and I hope you get to enjoy a bit of Kilkenny as well for the next few days. But again, thank you all for this morning, and again, enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those few words, Minister. So a very warm welcome and a very good morning to everybody here who are joining us in the wonderful surrounds of Kilkenny Castle for today's events. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. I want to congratulate again publicly the new president of the AILG, Cathaoirleach Pat Fitzpatrick, and of course the Cathaoirleach of Kilkenny, for his kind welcome, and indeed to Minister Malcolm Byrd for his very considerate and encouraging words and his attendance. I know these people's diaries are extremely busy, so I want to in particular acknowledge the fact that they're here and they've contributed. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Elaine and Tommy from the AILG, an organisation that is at the forefront of local government. I'm sure many of you will also agree, of course, the Minister has outlined his own 16 years as a member of Kilkenny County Council, brings a wealth of experience to him, and is a firm believer, I know, in innovation, and is very strong on the importance of local government. A very strong Kilkenny bias to the opening of proceedings here this morning, so again, my sincere thanks to both gentlemen. As Chair of NOAC, I'm particularly pleased that we're able to host our 5th annual Good Practice here in Kilkenny. In particular, this year's seminar is taking place once again as part of the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform's Innovation Week, and it's a wonderful opportunity to showcase innovation within which the local government sector and allows for the opportunity to exchange ideas amongst local authorities, be it here in Kilkenny, be it online, and a particular special welcome to those of us joining us in online platforms, as part of a later conversation that we're going to have outside of this event. NOAC welcomes the annual event and the opportunity to highlight and encourage the delivery of improved and more efficient services to the public in a collaborative manner. NOAC understands its statutory remit carries out this seminar, which I believe is a real opportunity to learn. The feedback from previous projects provide evidence of this in relation to numerous projects that have been showcased over the years. And one quick example of that is the COVID chatbot, which was presented here last year by Fingal. I understand it's now in the process of being implemented as a local government chatbot by Fingal, along with 5 other local authorities. And I think that's the success of the Good Practice Seminar. It's when people take those ideas away and replicate them in other local authorities. An example there of 5 taking that initiative from Fingal. It's hoped that this technology will be configured with information on all council services, and following a successful implementation with those local authorities will be offered to the other 25 local authorities. Listening to the projects, responding to whatever needs you have, and developing solutions that others may have to fit your local authority is the real value and a great measure of the success of seminars like this. The sharing of good ideas and solutions is what today is about, and to quote James Joyce, "To learn one must be humble, but life is the great teacher." NOAC are aware of the extraordinary demands that have been placed on our local authorities in recent years, and innovative responses are required, whether it be the extraordinary challenges of COVID, operating with increasing costs, or the significant and worthwhile efforts in helping those travelling from war-torn Ukraine to settle and to integrate here in Ireland. Meeting challenges such as these, whilst at the same time delivering vital public services, show the incredible resolve and the value that local government provides to our society. In fact, a lot of the innovative work carried out by local authorities has come about in the face of these challenges and tests, and can encourage the local government sector to look at new ways of providing the array of services that they do. Today, of course, is also a day to recognise the innovative solutions put in place by local authorities, and we in NOAC, as the oversight body, acknowledge the incredible efforts that have taken place to drive innovation and the wider effort to deliver better and more efficient services to the public. One of the important roles of NOAC is supporting the development and the enhancement of good practice by local government bodies, and the projects being showcased here today demonstrate just what those qualities are about. And we would of course like to emphasise that the presentations being shown here today are always but just a small example of some of the very fine initiatives that could have been chosen in terms of the others, but unfortunately we're limited by timescales. Furthermore, through visiting local authorities as part of the scrutiny process, the performance indicator validation visits, preparation of various reports, and reviewing the many examples of innovation for this Good Practice Seminar, I am heartened and genuinely impressed by the range and variety of innovation that is ongoing within our local authority system. Looking ahead at the agenda, there's a wide variety of very interesting topics and very good examples of good practice, which I hope can provide learnings and perhaps export new approaches to challenges that the local government sector are facing. Projects chosen today come from all over the country. Each year there's a wealth of knowledge to be shared over a vast array of projects targeting different citizens. We'll see those topics in drones, GDPR, building sustainable communities, providing solutions for cyber threats, engaging communities, and sharing of digital solutions, and Ukrainian refugees. Following presentations, we're going to have some time for questions and answers. That will provide an excellent opportunity for all of you to raise any pertinent points or questions that you may possibly have on the projects. Of course, all of the presentations today will be available on the NOAC website in the very near future, and I would like to very much encourage you to visit our website, take a look at the various presentations, and opine on how these initiatives may possibly benefit your particular local authority. Additionally, I would also like to take the opportunity to encourage you to look at the many NOAC reports and publications on the website which may be of benefit. As we all know, there are countless further innovations which are always ongoing behind the scenes. Finally, I want to acknowledge that this is a joint seminar between NOAC and the CCMA, and I am pleased to say that the new chair of the CCMA, Frank Curran, will provide the closing address. Before I conclude, I want to say a few words of thanks. I wish to extend my deepest and sincerest thanks to Sean McKeown and Kilkenny County Council and the OPW, and especially Anne and Aisling for all their assistance and for their continued support for the seminar. I would also like to extend my thanks to Marianne Cassidy from DEPR and Fiona Quinn from NOAC for chairing the sessions today. I would also like to acknowledge the presence here of my NOAC board colleagues, Brian, Kieran, Noel, Fiona and Niall Quinn, and also Declan, who have made the journey. I want to in particular highlight my appreciation for the excellent logistical support that's provided by the members of the NOAC Secretariat, as Claire, Alan, John and Valerie, and the LGMA's Eddie, O'Loughlin, David Drummond, Siobhan Daly, in the preparations for the seminar. These events generally go very well, and when events go well, nobody really questions who was organising them. So I want to acknowledge the huge depth of work that has gone into this by those individuals. It's hugely appreciated, and they've pulled all of this heavy work together, and for that we are extremely grateful. Lastly, a very big thank you to all of those who will be presenting your council's projects throughout the day, and I wish you all the very best for the upcoming morning. It's my absolute pleasure to hand you over to the chair of the first of this morning's session, Marianne Cassidy. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael, Minister Kaylock. It's a real pleasure to be here today to chair the first session of the NOAC conference. It's part of Innovation Week. I don't know if some of you were at the launch of Innovation Week yesterday, but it's very clear that innovation is the bedrock of public service transformation. And like I said yesterday, transformation is innovation at scale. And sharing good practice, celebrating accomplishment is really critical to really scale up innovation. The local government sector has been at the forefront of innovation. My own role in DEPR is to, with the team, lead the agenda, set the policy, making innovation real, the civil service renewal framework, the public service transformation framework, and then provide the platform and the tools to support all of you to innovate in your own organization. And you've really embraced it. One of the tools we have is the Public Service Innovation Fund that's being launched tomorrow. Every year, we get great numbers of applications from local authorities. Actually, 2 of the projects in this session benefited from the fund in the last couple of years. Generally, local authorities have benefited for 25% of the fund to date. Over $500,000 has been given to innovation to local authorities. And then the scaling of those has been great afterwards. The ability to share across the 31 local authorities has been great. Likewise, we know that most local authorities have their own innovation strategy and plan based on the innovation wheel. I know they've been in touch with the team to get scorecard, and there's been at the forefront, which is great, and I encourage you to continue. I'm told that 47 people are listed as innovation representative on the network of 2,000 members. 302 of the innovation network are also from local governments. So it's very clear that you've grabbed innovation with both hands, and events like today are great. So I'd like to introduce you to the first speakers with Ruth Buckley, who is Chief Information Officer of Cork City Council. Ruth is going to speak to you about the importance of collaboration, I think, as part of the Irish local authorities sharing cyber information. And if we learn anything about yesterday's conference around innovation, is that collaboration is key, and great strides were done in the area to tackle a key risk of cybersecurity. So Ruth, I'm told you 15 minutes.
ISACs. What are ISACs? Information Sharing Analysis Centres. Big long word. I'm Ruth Buckley. I'm Chief Information Officer for Cork City Council, but I'm also Head of Information Systems. And basically what we do is we're responsible for digital transformation, big words. And for the last 20 years, what we've really been doing is making sure that we're enablers. We provide you with a safe and secure environment so you don't have to think about it. But we have problems. We've got some big problems. Challenges, really. Not least the flicker. Anyway. So when you're starting out to run a project, you look at the context, and we're going to deeper with something that you want them to fund. There has to be a solution that you're offering for a problem, an existing problem, and ours is environmental. On the left-hand side in the red, every one of you here, if cyber is not in your top 3, I'd be amazed. It's 24/7, and what we've seen in the last 5 years is that the level of sophistication and evolution is incredibly high because the business model, folks, is working. It's proven. Ransomware is a very effective way of extorting money from organisations, as we know. I was hugely impressed with the way the HSE handled it, and it set a real benchmark for Ireland Inc. We don't pay ransomware, and I think that's very correct. Very brave and very correct. But if you're in a public service and somebody's screaming at you because you're down and you're down for weeks and you don't know the full facts, you don't know when you're back, you're under massive pressure. Social media alone is going to strangle you alive. So on the left-hand side, you see what we're dealing with, and also it's ubiquitous. It's 24/7, it never lays up. We had a fantastic presentation from the Scottish EPA recently. They were attacked Christmas Eve. They had been inside their network for weeks. Then they attacked them again, St. Stephen's Day, when people came in to try and recover. And this went on for weeks and months. And 2 years later, they still haven't fully recovered, and it's cost them 5 million. They didn't pay the ransomware. On the right-hand side, cyber insurance. Well, we were one of the first local authorities, Cork City Council, to actually take out cyber insurance in 2018, thanks to our very foresight, the foresight of our head of finance, John Hallahan. That has doubled in 4 years, and the cover has halved. Not halved, actually, it's dramatically contracted. And I would like to test it in certain scenarios. At last week's Cyber Summit in Dublin, the spokesperson for 2 of the children's hospitals said that during the HSA event, their cyber insurance, basically they haven't renewed it. Didn't work. So do you really want to be trying to rely on something that is unproven? And this is evolving. This is incredibly new and relevant. And I have seen personally, we've all seen it, the number of alerts, the amount of information has grown exponential, not least because of the actors involved. So what's an ISAC? So ISAC is basically a community. It's very well established in the States for the last 15 years. President Obama actually passed legislation about 15 years ago. And those motifs up there are from ISACs, very well established. Now, the focus was on critical infrastructure. You all remember what happened to Colonial Pipelines there and how effective that was. One attack. And a lot of these are jurisdictional malware products. And what happens in the Wild West when you put something out like a virus or a malware? It gets colonized. Other people take it over and they tweak it and they make it more effective. So what these sectors have done is they've come together, and a sector is a really logical entity when you think of it, because common third providers, common threat landscape, common regulation, you have a lot in common, so you have a very familiar threat landscape. And these organisations have got together, and in particularly in finance, very strong in finance, because before I joined the public sector, I worked in the financial services, and they were paranoid about security even then, because that was their gold standard. If you're going to give your money to somebody, it has to be secure from all sorts of perspectives. So they've always been good at this because it's in the culture, it's in the DNA. So it's not for profit, it's a community, and what you share is cybersecurity. And I won't go into it today, but there's actually 30 different types of cybersecurity according to a NATO model. Some of it is militaristic in nature, about 3 out of the 30, but there's all sorts from strategic to tactical to operational. What you hear is about the operational. Really, that's not much use to you. You're trying to figure out the impact on your organisation. You might know how serious it is. You might know the TTPs, which is tactics, techniques and protocols. You might know the name, but realistically, what kind of impact it's having in your sector. So the EU cyber strategy is always very handy. I peppered my application with all of this there last year. It's 10 years in the delivery, and it's 2020-2030, and they have this great concept of a shield. So when you're building a defence, look at this castle, you do it in layers. And one of the big layers are Isaacs. And Isaacs are seen as a real they're trying to push the Isaac model around Europe, and the United States is one of the reference models. But the Dutch have been using Isaacs since 2006, and I think they're members of NATO, and I've seen a correlation between membership of NATO and the level of sophistication in the cyber defence of the country. Now, this is a really good model. It's quite new. It's 2020, and this is the basis for our innovation, our project. We've taken a model which has worked really, really well and been published and proven by the Dutch, and we've applied it to the Irish local government sector. Remember, I use the word sector because the sector is the entity. The key collaborators, well, the HIS, these are my peer group, my colleagues. They're front and centre because we're the people who last Friday night, was it Friday night or the Friday night before? 7 o'clock, we're the ones who got the cyber alert about the latest, except, you know, and straight away we're ringing people who are at football matches with their kids because the compromise indicator was really high. It had a CVS level of 9.6 out of 10. Now, luckily we weren't impacted, but we're the people. Who are you going to call? And I remember where I was for WannaCry 5 years ago, for Clonficker 10 years ago, and you're on your own. It's very lonely. So this bunch of people are amazing. They're the people that I pick up the phone to, and they're the people who are dealing with day out, and they're the people that are coming out of their beds at 5 o'clock in the morning. I have pulled somebody out of their bed at 5 o'clock. They're not obliged to, because we're not set up, we don't have the structures, but there's a huge amount of goodwill. It's not sustainable for the level of sophistication we're facing. Obviously, Deeper have been incredibly supportive. The IVI Value Institute, I wanted a third level institute because I wanted something that wasn't going to be charged and monetised and privatised. We're already fleeced enough. And Maynooth are particularly good in this particular space, and they've proven very effective. They've actually delivered the project with us. But also, I think we're creating a centre of excellence for Ireland Inc. It's sustainable. It's not personality driven. We're going to retain that in our sector. Obviously, the National Cyber Security Centre were incredibly supportive. They're on board our group to make sure we're going in the right direction, that I'm not going off half-cocked, creating alliances with ABNC internationally with outside the strategy. And then, of course, LGMA, our own central hub of coordinating. So we had those 5 people, and in fairness, they had about 24 hours to make up their mind on an obscure email from yourself before I submitted, and they all bought in. Milestones, not going to go into it here, but this is what Maynooth has delivered for us. We've done seminars, very powerful afternoon. We had 40 people from around the sector on a seminar with the Dutch Isaac and the multi-state Isaac from New Jersey in the States. Very effective, very powerful. I'm sure they were saying, what is she doing? And they turned out with a goodwill to yours truly, I suspect. Very supportive people. But I could see, like, what's an Isaac? But when they came away from this seminar, they, oh, okay, I get it now. They could actually see the exemplars. The Dutch told us it takes at least 2 to 3 years to get one up and running. The guy, you couldn't make up the name, this guy, Axel Rose, big black t-shirt with red roses on it. His name is Randy Rose. You can't remember like that. The multi-state Isaac from New Jersey was fantastic. And they're at it 15 years and is subsidised by the federal state. The 3 deliverables for any good project. What are your deliverables? Quantifiable and qualitative. So the first one, establish the first Irish Isaac, and Irish local government has done that. We actually have our own Isaac now, and we've actually tested it in live on a cyber breach, which I'm going to tell you about. The second is to go to level 1 of the Dutch model. Again, we're taking that model. It has 5 competencies, and we wanted to reach 3 out of level 1. We've done that, and we've excelled with the help of all the stakeholders, particularly Maynooth and the people around the country who turned up. And finally, we're well on our way to creating a national centre of excellence in Maynooth. So this is something that can be shared with other sectors, private and public, and that is in the EU cyber strategy. A recent cyber event. We had our first Isaac meeting last August. It was unplanned, and as you do on a Monday lunchtime, one of my colleagues got a fairly benign email from a third-party vendor. Many of you, whether you know it or not, your websites have services, and the services are actually provided by third parties, cloud. Small SMEs sometimes, big multinationals other times, but to the subscriber or to the citizen, they go on the website and it might be a public consultation. It could be an event alert. I want to be informed of any planning application that happens in my region. You sign on, you give in your user ID, you give your email address, certain personal information, and you've signed up. There's at least a dozen of these services. They look and feel like Cork City Councils or Dublin City or Fingal or Laois. They're not. They're actually a third party that we've gone to tender, we've gone through a dialogue with, we've signed a contract, and we're assuming they're keeping it safe. Bottom line, though, we're the data controller, they're the processor, we're in the hook if anything happens. And we discovered that one of our third party, we call them Organisation X, Organisation X said, look, we've noticed something funny Monday afternoon, we're not sure. And that's very typical of a cyber event. Anybody who tells you, we know this, it's very unusual. It often takes days to figure out what's going on because people just notice suspicious activity. So I knew there was about 5 other local authorities who use this product. And I picked up the phone to one of them and I said, Tommy in Dublin South, one of the events has been around as long as I have. You could pick up the phone and say, Tommy, what's going on there? And he goes, I don't know anything about this. No one's told me. He didn't know anything. So Tuesday, we pulled about 3 or 4 people together for our other local authorities that we knew, and Tommy sat in it because obviously if you're running a service that potentially is a breach, you may have to explain that to your own providers or your own customers. And then it became clear this was evolving. We still didn't have a lot of facts. And I had management team on Tuesday. I'm one of the few HIS who are actually on the management team. And my chief executive asked me a very simple question, Ruth, how does this impact the sector? Pardon me. How does this impact the sector? And I said, I actually don't know who else. I think there's about 7 out of the 31 local authorities using this. She said, do we need to stop the service? Very good question. Should you pull it off? Have we lost data? Couldn't answer that because they couldn't tell us that they'd lost data. They saw a small trickle of a data flow out, but not the kind of gigabytes they would expect. So anyway, on Wednesday, I spun up the ISAC. When I say I spun up, I rang around a few colleagues, said, lads, this isn't looking good. I said, yeah, we're not getting the kind of cohesive information we need to handle here. So we luckily got we got the vendors to agree. They didn't really have much choice, but in fairness to them. So I sent around to all the HIS, no, it wasn't just me, I emailed all the 31 to say, look, meeting this afternoon for an hour, bring your data protection officer. I would recommend you bring one other person to this. Obviously, this is highly confidential, and we're going to be briefed by Organisation X. After that hour, we came away with a handle on things. Number one, out of the 31 local authorities, we discovered 19 were using this service. 19. We discovered from Cork City Council, we had 4,500 subscribers, potentially 4,500 data subjects. We discovered 7 local authorities portal had this injection of a script. It's a piece of code that you do not want there. Luckily, by Wednesday, the vendor was able to determine, to our satisfaction and to theirs, that the script had been executed in one local authority only. So one local authority had been the subject of an attack. And what this particular attack was, it was a phishing attack in that they came in, they ran the script, they harvested 2 pieces of personal information for all of the data subjects, the user ID and the email address. And they used that valid email address, which is very valuable. They normally have to buy it on the dark web. And they created a false phishing attack, which was basically a request for funding from Netflix. Did up a very nice mock of Netflix, came out from this portal, from a local authority portal, and it went out to I'm not sure, was it hundreds or thousands of email addresses. So that local authority was obliged to go to the Data Protection Commissioner. And it was all done within 72 hours of the notification, which is the legal obligation. The rest of us then were able to understand how we could actually defend our actions. So we didn't have to spin it down. We could prove there was no loss. We knew that one local authority had, and it all went swimmingly well after that. But that 1 hour showed to me the power of the ISAC, because as a sector we had a 360-degree perspective we would not have had unless we'd pulled each other together. But we also had the data protection officers inside in the room with us, the virtual room, and we made the decision. And I was able to go back to my chief executive and say, this is what's happening, this is the exposure. If anybody on Twitter starts saying, why aren't you pulling down this service, there's been a breach up the country, what are you doing, how dare you, I'll be able to say, well actually no, we've investigated, boom, 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 boom. And more importantly, we've fulfilled our obligations under data protection. So look, finally, I'm trying to make sure the 10 minutes or the 15 minutes, finally, the future is promising. We're just starting on this journey. I think it's inevitable that it will grow and evolve. There's a level 2, level 3. We've already had a request from the EU ISACs organisation to see, would you like to partner in future collaborations? Absolutely, of course we would, particularly if there's EU funding. And finally, we're going to be in a very good position because ENISA, which is the EU Cybersecurity Agency are bringing out new legislation. Now, you all know the revolutionary impact that GDPR had on us. Well, NIS2 is quite likely, it's entirely possible, we don't yet, it's up to the government, that local authorities will be brought into the definition of critical infrastructure providers. And if we are under NIS2, we will have even more bigger obligations to manage and protect. We have reservoirs of personal and sensitive data. When you think of our housing applications, when you think of disability grants, when you think of all those reservoirs, not putting aside the amount of subscribers we have for these new cloud services, which we're all embracing. And it's part of government policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth. I think it was a great example of not only collaboration, but also the ability to learn for international good practice, apply it in Ireland, and watch out for each other's back in the process. So thanks, Ruth, for that. The next speaker is Alan Dooley, who is Head of Digital Strategy for Limerick City and County Council. While collaboration is really important, as part of an innovation journey, there's always a technology, a process part, and more importantly, a people part. So I think Alan is going to explain how he got out of a crisis in terms of the use and governance of CCTV to really create a culture of innovation within the local authority. So Alan.
Thank you very much, Christine. And I'd like to commend Ruth and our colleagues for what she's doing from a cybersecurity perspective. Cybersecurity is probably the only thing that worries me on a daily basis, and I would tend to agree we're really not set up. We can defend, but some of the stuff that we have to do is to be proactive and prevent in the first place. And when you look at the costs of not doing enough, it's enormous. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about CCTV, data protection, and the path to innovation. And it's quite a journey. It's from a camera on a pole right through to data governance, dealing with some of the things that Ruth talked about, and how we leverage that for innovation. So just a little bit about myself, because it kind of contextualizes. Do I press the green button? There we go. I'm relatively new to the local government sector. I'm here about 18 months, but I've worked for about 25 years as in the software engineering, US financial services. Previous role was a director of engineering for a Fortune 50 company, Prudential Financial. So I've about 20 years working and building digital solutions to manage data governance and seeing the benefits of what those digital solutions actually bring to the table. And it's data governance on one hand, but it enables a tremendous amount of innovation on another hand. And in US law, state law, federal law, SEC regulations, white-collar crime is very, very strictly enforced in the US. And so I kind of got used to it. I grew up in that environment of you got to protect the data at all costs because it could bring down your company. You could have enormous fines, and I mean enormous fines in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it was part of my DNA. So just talk a little bit about data governance. And data governance is hard. It is very, very hard. So when you want to find the data, who do you ring? Who do you ring to find the data? How do they get it to you? Is there personally identifiable information at play here? What happens when the data goes to that person who has asked you for the data? Should they get that data? And after they consume the data, should they delete it afterwards? There's lots and lots of things to consider here. Now, local authorities are very, very good at people and process. But when the data needs to scale, and we're all in this world now where data really is king, it allows us to do our jobs very effectively on a daily basis. And when it needs to scale, and your people and process duo, being sort of Excel and email for the most part, it's going to be difficult to achieve the goals at that scale. You'll see burnout, you'll see mistakes, you'll see shortcuts, you'll see, well, I'll send you the data because it's convenient, but I won't request that you delete it afterwards. But when you add the right technology solutions to the mix and transform the culture of the people and the processes to match, you're more likely going to achieve success. Now, what does success look like? Success could be as simple as making your day-to-day job a whole lot easier, not having to maybe repeat the exercise just because you get an ask today to provide a load of data for maybe a department or your colleague, and then next week you get a very similar ask, and it's repeat, rinse and repeat. I'm sure everybody's sort of familiar with those kind of difficult, laborious tasks. So when you're producing you want to ensure that you've got integrity and security for all of the data that you produce. So I'll talk a little bit about CCTV within Limerick. So, and this will start the journey from how I'm getting to innovation. CCTV in Limerick, there's a long history going back to the mid-1990s, and there were significant issues in the estates with joyriding, arson, criminal damage, and there was commencement of a local initiative supported by the Limerick Corporation at the time, Moyross Community Enterprise Centre and Garda Síochána. So there was limited cameras put up with some monitoring. Now the council would have worked closely with the Gardaí and the community to ensure that everything was above board. This is all, of course, pre-GDPR. But in the early 2000s, there was a significant escalation in feuding activity within the city, with many murders, many attempted murders, firearm seizures, explosive seizures. It was incredibly serious, and it really impacted the city of Limerick. The Fitzgerald report that came out, I think around 2006 or 7, described, and to put it mildly, a very serious situation within the city. So with Department of Housing funding, there was a government commitment to apply significant resources to combat crime and antisocial behaviour in those particular regeneration areas. CCTV coverage increased significantly throughout the 2000s and into the 2010s, specifically in these areas, with over 250 cameras installed over a 15-year period, and the construction of a modern monitoring centre in the Moyross Community Enterprise Centre. So CCTV was, in this coverage in these areas, was a key element in the public safety strategy within the regeneration programme that came out of the Fitzgerald report. And it was assisted in the successful detection and prosecution of serious offences up to the present day, but with continued extensive and consultation process with communities involved. So things changed, of course, in May 2018 when the General Data Protection Regulation guidelines came in. And so almost immediately, and possibly rightly so, the Data Protection Commissioner commenced an audit. I'm sure many folks from local authorities received questionnaires about their use of CCTV. Some of those questionnaires triggered an audit. Limerick City and County Council was one of those who were audited, and in December, I think 2021, the final report came out, and the clock started ticking for us to remediate all the findings of that particular audit. So we had to go through and review literally every camera. In this case, actually, there was at this point, there was over 400 CCTV cameras around the city, primarily in the city and in various towns around the county. So we had to determine the necessity of each and every camera, the justification for each and every camera, the proportionality of each and every camera, and bring each of these as part of an application to the Garda Commissioner for approval. Now, this is where things kind of helped me in a way. The seriousness of the situation almost immediately sharpened minds within the council, and there was a new appreciation for not only the necessity of GDPR, but the difficulty of managing it and managing data, which has data governance at its core, and the piece I mentioned earlier. Now, thankfully, all of the problems with the DPC we've resolved successfully on time, and we now have an ecosystem of 352 or 53 cameras, all legal, thankfully. Now, when it comes to data governance, how do you ensure that the right person sees the right data for only the right amount of time? Can you do this manually? Of course you can. But what about scale? Especially when we're about to deal with climate change and the climate action targets of 51% carbon reduction by 2030, data is going to help us figure out all of those things. how do we, as responsible parties, have certainty that our data is protected? To minimize the risks of data breaches, cybersecurity breaches, we need to apply digital solutions. And again, at our scale, it's very, very laborious. So as data needs grow, do we add more people and process, or are there technology solutions that we can bring to the table? Now, bear in mind that the trilogy of people, process, and technology, an imbalance in any one of those little sectors won't ensure success. We can add more people, but we'll hit a limit. We'll hit a cost limit, and we can't just continually throw people at some of these solutions. You'll hit a cost ceiling very, very quickly. If we're not already there at a cost ceiling, and I know with budgets probably about to tighten, we need to look at things a little bit differently. So process can only achieve so much. Now, technology by itself isn't the answer, but it is a critical component. Most digital transformation projects fail because the balance isn't achieved across all of those three sectors. So what do we do? Because of the Data Protection Commissioner audit, we had a very acute response within Limerick City Council. And I noticed there was an almost immediate shift in culture across the whole organisation. So this was key for springboarding into a new innovative world. We had the most critical of the segments, the people, with their eyes open about the criticality and the difficulty of data governance. So what are we going to do? We're going to really set about automating as much as is possible, bringing 21st century digital solutions to 21st century problems. So when we automate, we manage to get access. We ease the process of getting access to data. We remove flow inhibitors, and by flow inhibitors, I mean the little stops in the journey of getting the source of the data to the person or the institution that needs it. So we remove all of the difficulties and the speed there. And we ensure that the right people get access to the right data at the right time. Now, this might be a bit of a so what. You know, we get data, we kind of manage day-to-day work just fine. Now, maybe without thinking that it's all about the scale, but there's big wins here, and the big win here is to release capacity and address succession planning. And now, by releasing capacity, I mean removing the predictable, repeatable jobs from people so that they can spend more time doing valuable work for our citizens. And by succession planning, I mean reducing the impact of staff moves in what can be a very fluid organisation. As one person moves on, they won't leave with all of their knowledge about how you do this, that, and the other in their head. What they'll hopefully leave behind is an automated process that somebody can very easily just pick up and consume and just get on with the job. So it's sort of smooth the transition of the variety of staff moves that happen within all local authorities. So what are we doing in Limerick? You know, we're very fortunate in that we have lots of the major tools already in place from a successive amount of investment over the past few years. Now, we're about to transition those and upgrade them, for example, our CRM. So a modern CRM has and within Limerick, we have a significant amount of experience in funneling all of our primary service requests, grant applications, permits, inspections, etc. And we'll be replacing this with a tool that becomes our new CRM, but also opens us up to a new world of very clever digital services that allow us to automate predictable and repeatable jobs. Now, I'm sure we all spend a lot of time filling out spreadsheets, or your folks in your teams do. Department returns, reporting, all of the things we need to do for NOAC. All of this starts with people. And our operations are really becoming way more data heavy, and we want to become a data-driven organisation, so we make the right decision with the right data at the right time. We need data lakes, data warehouses. I know some of this terminology may mean something to you. You might have heard it, but do you really know what it's all about? I'll use a bit of a roads analogy, a road building analogy. Essentially, we need to build a motorway for the smooth and quick transfer of data. But instead of using a wheelbarrow and a shovel, which is email, Excel, to build this motorway, we're going to bring about modern equipment to replace the email and the spreadsheet. Now, a CRM isn't about customer relationship management. It's about workflow automation. CRMs have come a long way from sales pipelines. They just enable so much more of our ecosystem that we can take that repeatable work and digitize it, enabling the capacity releasing and the succession planning. So we're putting in place the building blocks to address the enormous challenges we're all facing. Data and our ability to process it is going to be a key component in addressing some of the significant challenges we've got coming. So we're leveraging the new and acute focus. There we go. Sorry, wrong button. We're leveraging the new and acute focus and culture that came about of the findings of the DPC to springboard into a new way of working that will enable easier data governance, release capacity, and enable succession planning. We'll build on and mature the processes that we have within our business improvement design team. We're very fortunate to have somebody focused and a team focused on this kind of stuff. We'll show people the art of the possible. We'll focus on data governance and digital solutions. I don't want it to be about me and my team. For somebody to come and knock on my door and say, Alan and your team, I wanted you to deliver this. I actually want digital mindset to be part of everybody else's job. And I help deliver it in the shadows and in the background, so that the art of the possible in their solutions has digital at the forefront. But all of this is really difficult. This is really a multi-year effort, starting with the fundamentals, starting with those foundations, and we'll build those foundations first, get them right, so we don't need to turn back and fix them. Now, this is really key to scaling and automating operations like this. Enterprise architecture like this is difficult to design, difficult to get right, but we'll get there. We're migrating right now, but this will enable us to scale. So this here is the treaty stone in Limerick. It was the foundation on which Limerick was built, so to speak. I believe technology is going to be the foundation on which Limerick is going to thrive. And this is really our journey from CCTV to data governance and leveraging that acute mindset as a springboard to innovation for the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Great to hear the importance of the multidisciplinary design approach to innovation and the leveraging of a crisis to come to an innovation mindset. The next two speakers come from my first public service employer in Ireland, Dublin City Council. We've got Veronita Mariti Sosoke and Jamie Cudden, who are going to speak to us about the accelerating the use of drones for local government. And innovation is not only about tackling the risk that is already there, but to allow us to harness new emerging technology. And I think that project is a great example of how to do that.
It's going to come up now, but wonderful to be here in Kilkenny Castle. What a beautiful venue. Yeah, I love watching drone footage, so we'll just look at this for about 5 minutes. But this is beautiful footage around Docklands, but what excites me about drones is just things you can do that aren't possible without the technology. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with drones and how we're trying to accelerate their potential. And really what I do in Dublin City Council is look at new emerging technologies and how we can apply them to deliver better services and also better outcomes for our citizens. And drones is just one of these technologies that's really starting to, excuse the pun, take off, lift off, whatever you want to say. But it's really about future-proofing the city. I think what we're seeing with digital is that the adoption of digital that used to take decades is now happening in years, it's happening in months. And there's a real, I suppose, dichotomy between what's happening within public sector and then what's happening in the world outside and how fast it's moving. And really, there's a lot that we can do in terms of grabbing these opportunities. And you're probably wondering why I'm showing pictures of scooters and bikes, but over the last number of years, you put a bit of tech, a GPS, an app, and creates a whole new service that we never thought was possible. And just, if you look at this slide here, 2017, you didn't have electric scooters in the US. In 1 year, you had 35 million trips. The next year, you had 50 million trips. And now you've got electric scooters and bikes in thousands of cities around the world, multi-billion euro industries, and a big tension between how you roll these out in cities because they just landed on our streets. So, this is the same that's going to happen with drones, and we just need to think about how we get ahead of the curve. Click the next one here. So here's a lovely image here, not something I was just scribbling last night. What do you think that image represents? Any ideas? It's a place North Dublin, Balbriggan. Everyone knows Balbriggan? Yeah? You know. What do you think? Drone deliveries. Yeah, drone deliveries over a week in Balbriggan a couple of weeks ago from a company called Manadrone. And if you look on the left here, it's delivering takeaway, groceries. This is happening on our doorstep. One of the most innovative companies in the world, you know, building out one of the biggest global businesses potentially on the back of, you know, North Dublin. And it's just amazing to think what's happening here. But you know, on the right here, they've done 100,000 nearly flights to date. They're employing lots of people in Ireland. Wing, which is backed by Alphabet, which is Google, just announced that they're using Dublin as another testbed, Lusk, to really grow this type of business. So this is happening on our doorstep. The future is happening in our cities, in our towns. All these new technologies are coming to a town or a village or a city near us. So what are we doing about it? So that's what the project is about, accelerating the potential of drones. It's about thinking about how we're going to grab that opportunity, but also working with a whole range of stakeholders. So if you think about what's happening at a European level, Europe is one of the leaders in terms of drones, in terms of regulation and governance, and you have the European Aviation Safety Agency absolutely trailblazing. And you can see some of the timelines there. We have lots of new regulation. Veronica will talk about that. And we need to figure that out and make sure that we're doing things right and doing it the right way. The second age, 2025, we're moving towards beyond line of sight. You even have these things called taxi drones. They're going to be rolled out in cities like Paris over the next couple of years. And then you're going to have mass adoption of drones. So this is happening now. What does it mean for a city like Dublin? Thousands of drone flights a day, even an hour above our airspace. And really, what's it mean for local government? Well, we're at the heart of this. You know, this is our urban public realm. What's going to happen just above the sky above us? But also think about the services that we're delivering using drones. I mean, I think in Dublin City Council, we have over 40 people across 14 different services either using drones or looking to use drones across a whole range of areas. So there's going to be competition between public use of drones for emergency, life-saving, for the services that we deliver, and then private sector, where it's delivering burritos, logistics. So we're going to have to get that balance right. And look at some of the headlines there. You know, got all the really good stuff. You know, it's about, you know, how we use it for environmental monitoring, emergency response, but all the negatives there. You know, delivering drugs into prisons, privacy. You know, people get a bit freaked out. And even with the war in Ukraine, you know, how drones are being used is kind of terrifying, I guess, in one sense. So I'm going to hand over to Veronica. So we set up a project to look at this, to bring everyone together and look at how we can set a bit of structure and shape. So go, Veronica.
Yeah, so I hope the mic is going to work. But yeah, pretty much. So what we did was, okay, let's look at this piece of technology. And what happened was in Dublin City Council, we got 45 different staff across 14 different sections. And they were like, okay, I see this piece of technology. It sounds interesting. It looks like it's going to help me or it's going to disrupt me. So we just brought everyone together and we proposed this project that was pretty much to look at compliance. It's looking at health and safety, how to make it operations like in a good way, and also how we build trust with our population. How can we actually use this piece of technology to take some opportunities and to make sure that we're doing it right. Can you just... Sorry, just gonna get the click. Yeah, so basically what we did is we just put together a 4 work package, being 1 and 2, really looking at upskilling staff, how we can produce some handbooks and reports that could help our staff and our people, and also looking at a little bit of the trust, so what the population is thinking about this technology. And then the work package 3 and 4, it's more looking at knowledge sharing. It's looking at how we can build a network, because I think everyone here that I presented is that collaboration is key. And so work package 3 and 4, it's kind of like looking at that. But I'm going to present very briefly, because I could do 15 minutes or even more in each of those work packets. But it's very, very quick overview. And all those outputs, they are available online. You can just download, and it's free. So the first one was the International Best Practice Report. So that one was a huge research to see what's happening where, what are the good things, what are the bad things, any good recommendations, and we did also an assessment of the Irish market, so how Ireland is positioned itself. As you can see, it's very complex. The drone ecosystem is just growing and growing, so we need to include everyone. So we have the customers, we have the drone service, we have to be thinking about the governance, how it's going to be our traffic system, that's called UTM for drones. We were also looking at the regulatory environment, and then for building those new legislations, we also need to be like measuring benefits and impacts. So if I just show a video.
What I'm seeing is an interaction between the private sector, the public sector, central government, local government, and they're looking at how drones can improve our daily life and how we need to regulate them so that the system can all work for the benefit of the public.
You need the people who develop drone platforms and develop the sensor technologies, develop the services that come with drones.
We need the right regulations, and we need the public and we need local authorities to work together to prioritise those services which make most sense and do the best public good. And I think in Ireland, this is probably one of the best places in the world to get that rolling effect.
So I think it's really, really inspiring to get summarized in 1 minute video what we are actually talking about, but I'm just gonna keep going. So the second work package that we did was really looking at compliance, and one of the key issues and barriers that we heard was actually privacy. They were like, okay, I don't even know if I can use a drone, what do I need to do, what do I need to put in place? So we just built a handbook focusing on drones, and just like very briefly explaining what it's about. We put a little bit of a structure of like 3 steps that we need to be thinking about. So data acquisition, analysis, and actions. And then just a little bit of like 4 steps, just asking questions, what you have to do, what you have to be thinking in mind, and then making decisions. So really, really like easy and very nice way of navigating that. And during the process, we engaged with a lot of range of stakeholders, and we identified 50 different use cases just for local government service. So that's pretty like impactful. So the second one was really a public sentiment survey, and that one was really trying to measure what people think about in Ireland. We wanted to see what's the context for us. And as you can see, it was 900 responses, so it was a huge kind of like survey across the whole Ireland and different age groups as well. So it's very representative, and it's very powerful to see that 84% of the people, they were very positive. They think it's a good idea, they think it's a nice piece of technology, but we need to work a little bit with the awareness, only like 50%, and most of the people, they were using as a hobby. And then the concerns, as you can see, is like privacy is on the top, 75%, followed by security and safety concerns. But I also wanted to bring here that by 2025, there was some expectations, and people are really like almost in the 60% saying, I think 2025, I'm gonna have delivery. So we really need to be preparing our cities. And even the air taxi that Jamie mentioned, we have like 18% that believe that maybe we're gonna have this kind of service. So it puts a little bit of like a pressure and momentum for us to be thinking and doing this right. So the other part of the survey was actually focused on public service, because okay, nice private service, but what really matters for us is how we're gonna prioritize public service. Do we need to do a little bit of more work of awareness? And so we just asked the questions. So the first one is emergency service. So that's really looking like drones for wildfires or maybe like some accidents. And then the second one, it's really looking at the planning. So on the planning one, you can use drones to identify trees, to do like footprints of the buildings, build 3D models. On the third one, it's environmental monitoring. So you can use drones to identify invasive species, or you could be looking at water pollution in our rivers. So it's a very interesting one. The next one, it's very similar. It's for like waste management and enforcement. So you could be doing a little bit of identification of illegal dumping across the cities. On the last one, we have traffic management. So we could be like popping up drones anywhere in the country and just like identifying traffic counts instead of like putting someone there. Or you could just do like traffic composition as well. And then the last is the policing, so how we could use also for a little bit of enforcement or accidents. So you could like scan some like crime scene or something. And as you can see, it's really, really high. The positive feeling, it's on over 80% for like the policing, but all the other ones, they are like 90% or plus. So I think we need to build on the top of that, how we're gonna build trust, how we're gonna keep telling them like we are complying with the privacy, with the safety and the security. So we really believe if we keep doing this kind of engagements and educating people, we have a huge opportunity to use drones for our own service. So the last handbook that we produced was looking at regulations and operations. And that one, it's very important because legislation is coming up. At the start of the year, we just had new European legislation that was disrupting a little bit of the sector. And we also are reviewing the whole like Irish legislation at the moment. So I think that's very important. And I would like to mention the big ones of institutions you have to look up. It's the EASA, that's the European level, and then the IEA, that's our aviation authority in Ireland. And that one, it's a very good handbook for people that already were using drones, so they can get up to speed with the new changes, but it's also very briefly explaining what you have to do if you want to start operating a drone. And then just to wrap up and send back to Jamie in the next slide, I just want to show a little bit of the events and the knowledge sharing. So we did a huge drone event in the Woodkey venue just on summer this year, and was like really sharing all this knowledge. We also brought together the whole sector of public service to showcase how we're using across the like Ireland, and we also had a little bit of a drone demo demonstration. One of them was a drone tethered, so it's linked with a cable, and that was like the first flight in Ireland that we had. So it's pretty like powerful. And just to mention that we also got shortlisted for this project for an innovation award in the biggest Smart City Expo. So hopefully we're going to win, but we are only discovering this next month. I'm going to hand back to Jamie.
That's great, Veronica. Thanks very much. So just the last, to summarize, just, you know, really there's a lot to think about here from local government. We're absolutely going to play a key role in this, not just in terms of the future, but also now the services that we need to prioritise. I think a sectoral approach is going to be really important. We need to think about, well, this was a lovely project, but how do we manage this as a sector? Because I don't think we can do it alone, and that's going to be really, really critical. And the other thing is that, you know, what type of services, you know, do we do in-house? What services do we maybe get as an outsourced service or something like that? So it's really, really important conversations to have. And I think also with the expertise with global people, top of their game globally, just saying, well, there is actually not a drone industry without citizen buy-in. If people hate this and think it's untrustworthy, and, you know, they don't feel like there's someone looking after it and that's going to, you know, thinking about the benefits to the public, I think we're not going to win, and, you know, we'll lose lots of opportunities. There's a massive economic opportunity, multi-billion industry. And then just last, this was the most amazing collaboration of any project I've worked on. The Irish Aviation Authority were brilliant. I suppose deeper, great street cred to you guys for kind of helping to fund it and helping us bring everyone together. Eddie as well, LGMA, and it was so many partners, public, private, academia. It was absolutely fantastic project, and all the assets, resources, everything's available. And, you know, I think it's a testament to the project that we're shortlisted for a kind of a governance award in terms of new and emerging technology at the Global Smart City Expo in Barcelona. So yeah, great stuff, and thanks very much for all your support. Wonderful to be here today. Lots to think about. Okay. Do you want to go in there?
There's a question
Yeah.
from online. It's just in regards to the phishing attack. I suppose one of the biggest learnings that you found from it. If you would like to say.
We've had a lot of different events over the last few years. That one in particular, what was really interesting is the organisation had made a fundamental mistake, I feel, in their handling. I think they should have come out to the sector day one, and I think we've encouraged them that they're not going to be murdered alive by the sector if they come out. And I think they had a very positive experience at the ISAC. But the biggest thing is that if we're all using, if 19 out of 31 were using this service, and if public confidence was damaged for the service in one local authority, that's contagious. And all 19 of us, even those that were not impacted, had to take this seriously, because A, we had to defend our actions in maintaining the service. Why have you kept it there? And B, we all had to participate in the mitigating recovery. When you have an incident like that, you're obliged to understand what happened and how do you stop it happening again. And that often takes the case. In this case, it took the form of a configuration both at the organisation side and at each of the 19. Each of us had to spend a half a day reconfiguring particular firewalls to make sure we were now robust and it couldn't happen to the rest, the 12 that hadn't been impacted. So I think the learning was I think the organisation learnt that if they engaged with us at the outset, but if you're using a service and it's been compromised, you're a stakeholder in that. You need to be in the conversation because you will have to take the mitigating action to prevent it happening to you. And you may have to defend it publicly, and you may have to maintain the confidence of the public on social media platforms.
Thanks very much. Just to say, folks, a lot of very positive comments in, but all the projects presented, so well done to everyone. One of the questions came in relation to the drone project, Jamie and Veronica, just the impact of the new legislation, if you like, and the new controls by the Irish Aviation Authority, and how much that will potentially impact the use of drones in the sector in general, but in the sector especially.
Yeah, and I mean, will I cover it? Sorry, yeah. So I think it's probably put a bit of a dent in terms of the momentum on drones, but all for the right reasons. And I think it raises a lot of questions in terms of how much you do yourself internally. And I think this kind of haphazard, kind of ad hoc approach, while it was something you could do previously, with the new regulation, it's just not possible. There's too much paperwork and there's too much risk in terms of not doing it properly. So I think it gets us thinking about how maybe we need to move beyond local authority by local authority to a sectoral approach, and then also think about what do we do well in-house versus, you know, what are the type of services that we might rely on other frameworks to deliver. So it's certainly, it's going to be really strong for the future, but there's some teething problems and some challenges at the moment, but the handbooks and stuff that we delivered, the training has really helped that, and we've helped a couple of local authorities get the accreditation. I don't know, Veronica, if you wanted to add anything else there.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's more like how to put all those procedures in place, and it's all for the right reasons, but it's just like thinking how you do that in a more like safe and operational way and scalable way. But it poses a little bit of like the challenge that before, when it was ad hoc, was a little bit less structured. But it's really, really good. And I think the handbooks really help because there is loads of questions, especially because it changed at the European level. But it's just trying to explain what are the changes and what's the impacts for each stakeholder. Mm-hmm.
Great. I suppose we have a question for Alan as well, just in regards to the role of culture in changing the view of the data. I suppose if you didn't have the event in Limerick, how easy do you think you would have got the buy-in to, I suppose, be able to change the approach?
Maybe I'm optimistic in nature, and I felt like I would have a high level of confidence that I would have been able to harness that culture shift. But for sure, I think it would have taken me a lot longer. I used to come from a highly organised private sector company with processes for everything, and enough people to do all of those things. Within local authority, it's less people for more functions, and so everybody puts their shoulder to the wheel to get everything done to an incredibly high standard. It's so impressive how local authorities operate, but a lot of people don't have the time to take their head up out of the weeds to think, how could we do things differently? My very nature is to think, how can I do something differently tomorrow than how I did it today? I don't want to challenge the status quo just for the sake of challenging the status quo, but there's always a better way to do things. And I see the technology and digital solutions as one way to address all of that, to address some of the issues Ruth talked about, to address many of the issues Jamie and Veronica talked about. But we need people. And I've been part of some projects that failed because, not within a local authority, but in a previous life, failed in an extremely big way financially because people were not brought on that journey. So once I recognized the acute change in culture, I went to pounce on that and leverage it to the nth degree. So that's still a journey, and as I said, it's a multi-year body of work that we'll implement.
Well, thank you very much to all our speakers. I think you have a break now. Eddie is going to give you the logistic, but just to say thank you again for giving me the opportunity to be here and do take part other event in Innovation Week this week. I encourage you to look at the full schedule, and best of luck with the rest of your day, and thank you.
We're going to kick off the second session here, and I'd just like to introduce the chair for this session, Fiona Quinn. Fiona is responsible for the Local Government Division in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and I'll hand you over to Fiona. Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks very much, Eddie, and good morning, everybody. And as Eddie said, I'm head of the Local Government Division in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. I'm also a NOAC board member, so it's great to be here this morning to meet you all, and indeed welcome all the people online as well. Really good to see, and we were talking about some of the COVID learnings earlier on. It's great to see the benefits and being able to kind of reach a wider audience using our kind of more newer technologies. Just a quick reminder to everyone to switch your mobile phones off if you haven't done already, and we'll be ready to kick off. Really interesting, I think, for the first session, just to see the kind of level of innovation and very much focused on the kind of digital and cyberspace, you know, with the ISAC and then obviously the CCTV project. And I know everybody was fascinated by the drones and looking forward to being able to get taxis home on Saturday nights, a drone taxi, be a great improvement. But I think we have 4 projects we want to talk to you about in this second session. And we have Tipperary, Dún Laoghaire, Rathdown, Leitrim County Councils, and then the Local Government Management Agency as well. And we have a mix of projects. We have a couple again that are in the kind of digital type space, and then 2 that are in the kind of more stereotypical local government operational space. And the first one, we'd like to welcome Brian Beck, who's Director of Service at Tipperary County Council. And Brian's going to talk to us about the Sustainable Energy Centre of Excellence in Nenagh. And this project, which is being funded under the Urban Regeneration Development Fund, is seeking to deliver, I guess, a demonstrator regeneration urban quarter through the creation of an iconic building that will act as an exemplar of how we could live in a low carbon and climate resilient community. I think you'd all agree that it's a very relevant project at the moment as we kind of face into winter with potentially some energy challenges. So look forward to hearing all about it. Brian, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Fiona. Morning, I'd like to introduce you to SECO Ireland, and this project has evolved from a combination of factors related to both Nenagh's expansion in regeneration and the wider future-proofing of Ireland's construction and wider economy for the advancement of sustainable energy technologies. And these are the partners to the project: the Tipperary County Council, Tipperary Energy Agency, the Technology University of the Shannon, North Tipperary Development Company, Community Power, and a private company called Siga Hydro. And as a partnership, we have several decades of experience of working with businesses, communities, and citizens in delivering sustainable energy projects, research and development, public engagement, and rural development. So I hope to be able to show you how and where this project evolved, how its foundations were laid at a time of austerity, and how the partners have reacted to opportunities to deliver on objectives of Project Ireland 2040 and the Climate Action Plan. So this is the site in 2012. It's just over 10 hectares in size, 24.7 acres. This is the Dublin Road. Many of you probably drove in before Nenagh was bypassed. This is O'Connor Shopping Centre, probably one of the first shopping centres built in Munster in the early 1970s. Abbey Machinery was from 1947. We have Sheehan's Yard here in O'Mill that was completely empty, and we have Arbonne Co-op down here and the train station here. So that was the site in 2020. Interestingly enough, as you can see, the site actually nearly is the same size as the town centre, and that was the problem. How do you deliver something that's not going to take away from the town centre? So it all starts back in 2011 when O'Connor Shopping Centre closed and the site deteriorated pretty quickly. And when we were preparing the new Nenagh Town Development Plan, it became clear that the site needed a master plan to inform the long-term development. And that master plan became known as the Martyrs Road Master Plan. And that plan then began to influence private development over the coming years, and then the idea of the National Sustainable Centre of Excellence arose. And this led to the identification of this site and a subsequent URDF application in 2020. So key learnings we got from it and can point to are the key support of the elected members, a strong partnership, a clear concept, landowners who were committed to reimagining the town, and a department who was willing to buy into the vision. So these are images of the site back in 2013, an underutilised, car-dominated, empty edge-of-centre location in multiple ownerships. And that was what we set out with the elected members to try and change. So uniquely, we treated the master plan in the same way as a statutory plan, with similar public engagement and consultation periods, and it was brought through council, and I think Tommy over there from the ALG was a councillor at the time, and we brought it through council for adoption, even though it was a non-statutory plan. And that was very important because we wanted to increase its profile and importance in the eyes of the public and the elected members. And the Martyrs Road master plan document is not just a master plan, it's a land use strategy, it's an urban design strategy, it's a public realm strategy, and it's a movement strategy. And as I said, it was about how do we develop this 10-acre site in a relatively small rural town, which is effectively the same size as the existing town centre, without damaging it or competing with it. So, as I mentioned earlier on, we came up with the concept of the National Sustainable Energy Centre of Excellence. That was its original name. We had no site in mind apart from the idea that it should be based in Nenagh town. And what you see here is part of the feasibility study of all available sites in the town. And this became very important when we were doing our preliminary business case as part of our options appraisal analysis. And our design team looked at 12 sites throughout the town, set against 14 criteria. That allowed us to narrow it down to 3 sites, which we examined in greater detail before we eventually arrived at the Martyrs Road site. So as the project evolved in our minds and the partners developed the business case, we agreed on this ambition. And the 2 key phrases there are the Centre of Excellence and the Catalyst. And around this idea of the Centre of Excellence and Catalyst, we developed 4 pillars. Which we believed it could become. So a centre of learning, a centre of incubation and innovation, a centre of community and social and community enterprise, and a centre of public engagement. And these pillars are built around the ethos and ambitions of each of the partners. So the partners to the project are recognised for innovation and delivery, and we have a long established track record in partnership and in delivering on climate action. And over the years, we have a partnership have asked what we as a county in Tipperary can contribute towards national goals and agenda in the areas of carbon, climate action, renewable energy and carbon reduction. And this has set Tipperary apart, and the county and the TEA were highlighted in the National Planning Framework as a case study. And as a consequence of that, the Southern Regional Spatial Economic Strategy identified Nenagh as the location for a sustainable energy centre of excellence. And this national and regional support was a central part of our URDF application. So you're building a story, you're building from the ground up all the time. And as mentioned in my previous slide, Tipperary has sought for many years to get into that space and to be at the forefront of climate change. We haven't hidden away from it. We want to be there in the forefront of how climate change and renewable energy agenda is set. And those are some of the areas where we've got involved in. The council at the time commissioned the biggest solar energy on all of its public buildings. 800 solar panels were put on all of it. It was the biggest contract in the country at the time. We're putting in wood pellet boilers in our public buildings. The development of the Lisheen Bioeconomy Campus on the former Lisheen mine site outside of Thurles. The support by ourselves and the TA of the first community wind farm in the country. We have always tried to strive to see where we can move this agenda forward. So before I move on to the project itself, I just want to mention governance and accountability in delivery of capital projects. This is something which my chief executive is very, very strong on. And what we have here is the structure established in Tipperary. So from the chief executive right down to, and the management team, right down to the project managers, which we've put into each municipal district, and the internal audit section. So what we're doing, we're ensuring that projects undergo full and proper scrutiny, that the structures are audited, and that robust project management systems are in place and are working. And this is central to capital project system in Tipperary and is constantly being reviewed and improved. And it's something which, as we go through all of our capital projects, we are learning and evolving all the time. So just showing you here again, oops, sorry, apologies. Go back. Okay, so again, we have, this was the original master plan of Martyrs Road, but this was the URDF application sitting in the middle of it. And this was made up of the SECO building here and the public realm around it. And the key principles to the project are compact growth, building design, education and innovation, permeability, connectivity and traffic, public open space, biodiversity, monitoring and recording of how the building and the public realm work, and then resource use and management. So what will SECO Ireland be? And that goes back to the 4 pillar objectives I mentioned earlier on and the key principles from the previous slide. And each of the objectives and principles is targeted at delivering innovative solutions, from training and development to new cutting-edge research and technologies, to incubating low-carbon social enterprises, and delivering a public realm which improves and expands on Nenagh Town. The whole idea is, as you can see there, what we're trying to do is create this carbon energy positive building with the plan that the building will power the neighbourhood, this low carbon neighbourhood. The building will power the lighting, will power the recharging points for the electric bikes, the electric scooters. The building will provide power within to the neighbourhood itself. We're looking at a building, as you can see here. We're not trying to hide the technology. We're putting the technology front and center so that people can come and learn and interrogate and be part of what we're trying to do here in terms of the M&E, in terms of the technology for 2030, but then how the building can then reimagine itself again for 2050. This building will be constantly developing and evolving. So there's nothing quite like a deadline to help a project along. And we've been working with our partners since the award of funding to progress this with regular steering and delivering groups from the partners. And these are just 4 documents which we've developed. We have the preliminary business case here with Grant Thornton. We have a communication and consultation plan. We developed the project charter, which includes the risk register. Very importantly, we got in independent quantity surveyors to challenge all the figures that we'd put together in terms of the costings, to interrogate those figures and to look at how we could value engineer the process because of the scale of it. And then we developed the branding around it, the 4 pillars that you can see there coming together in terms of SECO Ireland. We've also completed stage 1 of the restricted tendering process and are currently at stage 2 tendering, developing the stage 2 documents. As part of this, we've workshops and experts assist us in the preparation of these tender documents, developed with public, private bodies, NGOs, community businesses, state and semi-state agencies. We've met with various government agencies, looked at other funding opportunities, and we've also requested our internal audit section to do a full audit of the project to have the learnings and to learn from those. So again, going back to 2020 or 2012, apologies, what you can see there is the Dublin Road again with O'Connor's and Abbey Machinery. And since that time, we have, as I mentioned, we have started to have the investment, the private investment. So a private developer bought O'Connor's on the basis of the master plan, knocked it, did a deal with Lidl, building a new store with some private, some additional smaller stores. Abbey Machinery has now moved to a more appropriate location. You could see a start of a new development taking place in here in Sheehan's Yard. And then going on to the existing where we are today, you can see the Lidl development finished. They put in a public open space area, which we requested as part of the planning. Abbey Machinery completely gone. Sheehan's Yard building is finished. We've put in with Iarnród Éireann a new public car park, which will be delivered parking for this whole regeneration. ESB, working with ESB to look at them moving out and delivery of a new road. As you can see, it's nearly there, just to finish it off and to provide relief. And then the longer term strategy or plan, again, the SECO building built, these linked open spaces running through the site, the low carbon neighbourhood. These houses have been granted planning permission and moving back with delivery of more housing, getting rid of uses which should no longer be in the town centre. And then just some imagery from the site. That's the building itself. As you can see, the public realm being part of, we don't want the standard public realm here. We want low embodied carbon public realm. How can we deliver a public realm that doesn't rely on granite coming from China? As you know, how can the biodiversity in that public realm deliver? How can we move the traffic away so it becomes dominated by the pedestrian, by the cyclist, by the biodiversity, that the building is central to that whole story. Another view from the other side of the building, you can see that the plaza area, but the regeneration from where we were back in 2012 to where we're going. And don't forget, this is funded. This is being processed. This will be delivered. A car park which the council owns being changed into a community space for farmers markets. You're moving through the town from space to space to space. And the future, you know, the additional phases. This isn't about just delivering this phase. There are additional phases to come in terms of how we do this. Engaging with the remaining owners, as I said, with ESB, with Nordair. And we're looking, remember I mentioned Arbon Co-op. How can we deliver a district heating system utilising their major expansion and all the heat that they're generating from their processing? The Tipperary Energy Agency has estimated that their excess heat could deliver a large amount of the heat required for the buildings in Nenagh Town Centre, especially the older buildings. And how can we utilise that? The active travel, utilising the funding there to bring all that movement right through the rest of the site, out to the new town park and leisure centre which lie here, and all the way through back into the town. The mobility and transportation hub around the train station with commuter rail links into Limerick. We're already in discussions with the EU about how this building can form part of a central and longer term partnership with other similar style projects around Europe, and the research that could go on there, and the low carbon neighbourhood, delivery of this lower carbon neighbourhood with those linked open spaces running through the site, the delivery of housing and the regeneration of this 10 hectares, so it doesn't compete, it delivers, and it works with the rest of the town. So just in terms of the last slide, where we're going, the key dates running through to opening and completion in 2026 of the building, and then the future delivery. And just to say, the building is already pre-let. All of the partners have committed to the building, and there will be a presence in the building going forward. So that's me, and that's my contact details if anybody would like to. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Brian. Fascinating project, amazing to see, I think, the kind of evolution of thought over many years. And we spoke about the challenges of kind of cultural change when we were talking about the data protection project earlier on. It's interesting to see in Tipperary County Council the interest and the drive for climate and energy initiatives over many years, and kind of culminating in this first phase of this bigger project. So very interesting, and certainly look forward to seeing the building when you have it up and running, Brian. Next up, we have Dunleary Rathdown County Council, and I'd like to welcome Stephen Brady, who's Director of Service in the Corporate Services Department at Dunleary Rathdown, to talk to us about their Build to Share initiative. So the concept of Build to Share in an ICT context is obviously based on the premise that a body will build something once and then share it with other public bodies. So the potential benefits of this obviously include lower cost and speedier development of systems. I have to say we've seen very positive impacts of these types of projects in the civil service. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing about this great local government sector initiative. So, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks for NOAC and the LGMA for putting on this great event. It's very nice that Build to Share is included in such an interesting programme. Hopefully it'll continue to be interesting right now. It's back to digital, but I promise you there's only one slide that's in any way kind of technical. You may obviously be asking what's sharing on the agenda for it all, because it's something that it's so obvious. It's something that we instinctively do really well in our sector. It's something we've been doing for years with our national shared services providing payroll and HR, national projects providing us with housing and planning systems, and even events like today are all about sharing ideas and examples of good practice so that we can take them home and try and implement some of those things ourselves. But Build to Share. Build to Share isn't designed to replace any of that. There's still a role for those national projects and national shared services to tackle the big and complex enterprise solutions that we require in certain functional areas. Build to Share is designed to help the tier below that, the many less complex systems we require to manage internal workflows and our external facing services. The why for all of this is that we've got a really busy workforce. And in my experience, local authority staff, they're very open to and very keen for change. And so there's a really strong demand and appetite for new digital services and new digital solutions to automate and digitize existing business practices, and also to help us to reimagine and improve on those business processes. The challenge is that we're 31 separate organizations, and we all have our 31 different sets of priorities and so on. The challenge also is the sheer number of services that we provide. That's our service catalogue. You should look at localgov.ie, where the service catalogue is hosted. 1,200 services. That's flicking through there, so you get an example of the sheer number of them. So we need to digitize those 1,200 services. But if there's one local authority trying to digitize 1,200 services, they're never going to be able to do it. So the challenge has to be shared. This slide is very important because with IT and digital solutions, there is that classic 80-20 split. So the initial capital costs involved and the effort involved in developing a digital solution really is only about 20% of the total cost of that solution over its lifespan. As the solution gets rolled out, it should disrupt the way the service has been provided. It should allow for that service to be improved. And then the digital solution itself should evolve as the service evolves, as technology evolves, and as things like legislation changes and so on. So not only do we need to share solutions at the outset, but we need to find ways that we're sharing throughout the lifespan of every solution. So basically what we need to do is we need to develop a structured approach to sharing, and that's what Build to Share is. It's about a structured and strategic approach to sharing IT and digital solutions, so that when solutions are developed, they're developed in a manner in which they can be shared, which isn't always the case. That we allow for sharing and collaboration over the lifespan of the system. That we place a good governance structure on top of all of that, and we need to be aware of the importance of marketing so that people can exploit what we've developed, and also that other things that are being developed can get fed into the ecosystem. So Fiona has mentioned that there's also a facility within DEEPR, within the civil service. DEEPR have a very mature Build to Share operation, and it works brilliantly. They invest very heavily in it. They develop solutions, and then they provide them to other civil service departments who can choose to take them on or not if they meet their needs. I suppose our sector is a bit different because of 31 different organisations that involve. So what we're looking at doing is something that builds on the DEEPR model. I've shown this particular graphic to a few people after I put it in the slide, and they had to explain it to every single one of them. So that's supposed to be a flexing biceps made up of people, because people are our strength. So we're 31 distinct organisations, and we can turn that into a positive. So basically, we have access to 31 sets of subject matter experts across the 31 local authorities, and we've got access to 31 sets of really good IT professionals who can work with us. So we can turn our disadvantage into a potential advantage through a devolved approach to system development. And that's what our evolution on the DEEPR approach is. It's a Build to Share model that involves all 31 local authorities potentially developing IT solutions using a third-party supplier of their choice. The key point being that at the outset, they develop it with sharing in mind. Once tested and live, the system is then made available to other local authorities. And because any authority can potentially do this, we end up splitting the burden of digitising all of our services by sharing it throughout the sector. So this slide describes how it works for a lead authority, and it's not very onerous at all. A fundamental point is that LAs will only work with on something that they're planning to work on anyway. As an example, later in the presentation, I'll mention a number of solutions that now exist in the Build Share portfolio, and every one of them was developed by a local authority primarily to meet their own needs, and they would have developed that for themselves anyway, even if they were never going to be shared. The only difference is at the outset, they follow some initial principles that allow something to be shared, and this is my vaguely technical slide, but again, really very, very simple. The systems should be cloud-based. The local authority should own the intellectual property rights so the sector can't be held to ransom by a single supplier, and so that we're always in control of the roadmap for the solution. You need to make sure that the procurement covers the onboarding of local authorities, other local authorities, and will allow for other local authorities to draw down on support. You shouldn't be creating blocks for other local authorities taking on your solution. You should make it as easy as possible. And the last point about configurable items, that's really important too. You shouldn't design in the rigid way that your business might carry out its processes. As a really simple and easy example, we have developed a meeting management system in Dún Laoghaire, and our standing orders only allow councillors to put forward 3 live motions at a meeting. So the restrictions on motions is encoded within the system, but the number 3 isn't. The number 3 is a configurable item. So if another local authority has 5, they can just take the system and take seconds to configure it for their use. For local authorities that want to avail of a Build Share solution, there's no compulsion at all. That's the first point. If you like the solution, you can sign up, and but if it doesn't tick all the boxes for you, that's fine. There's a recoupment fee that's set by the lead authority, and this is typically somewhere between 8 and 12% of the total development costs, normally based on the size of the purchasing authority. So smaller authorities will pay less. I'll come back to the benefits and so on of this later. There's a capital charge also, and that's normally an annual figure of somewhere between 1.8 and 2.2% of the initial cost of developing the solution. And the capital charge allows for an ongoing roadmap for the system, referring back to that 80-20 split about how the system has to evolve. So it's good to have a capital budget that can help pay for that. And there's a good governance model evolving over all of that. So, as I've said, the lead authority are developing a solution that they would have been developing for themselves anyway. So the very worst that can happen is they just do that. However, it will help when they're building the case for funding internally that there's a chance that some of the investment will be recouped through sharing. And the lead authority will also get better results on the ongoing evolution of their solution after it's initially developed and deployed, because other authorities will be contributing capital, and also because, even more importantly, other local authorities will be contributing on suggestions on improvements. The advantages for the adopting authorities are any authority taking on a Build Share solution will be getting something that already works within the sector, so they know for sure that it works for them. They will get a solution relatively cheaply, paying just a percentage of what the lead authority did. When I mentioned the recoupment charge earlier, if, for example, a local authority develops a solution for €100,000, other authorities buying into that will be buying into it for €8,000 to €12,000, so they're getting really good value. They'll also be committing to contributing around €2,000 per year to a capital fund, but the governance structure gives them a real and equal say in the roadmap for the system, so they'll be able to prioritise changes that they want or need. For the local government sector as a whole, there's advantages, not least of which is that if LAs are able to leverage work done elsewhere, there's less duplication of effort. So, for example, DLR doesn't have to develop a chief executive order system because we can avail of Fingols. And that allows us to focus on developing something else, creating this virtuous circle, because we can then work on something that Fingol might benefit from. Also, the process is highly agile. It doesn't require the building of a complex business case for central approval like a shared services project. As these things are done once rather than many times, it maximizes the overall investment in IT in the sector. So what's been developed I'm just going to fly through these. There's LA Docs, which is a document management solution. It's live in Dunleer-Rathdown and Fingal, and Longford are currently implementing it. There's an EPMDS system which came out of Longford first and is being piloted in DLR, will go live in DLR and Monaghan in January. And it's way more than just PMDS, it's also a strategic tool that allows you to digitally manage the development of annual service delivery plans, departmental plans, team plans, right down to individual plans. There's LA Meeting Point, the meeting system that I referred to, which is live in Dunleary and being implemented in Kildare. CE Orders is live in Fingal, and they're working with DCC and ourselves, amongst others, to implement that next year. EFOI is live in Dunleary, and demos have been done for a number of other local authorities. And our most successful one so far is the Blended Working app, which came out of South Dublin County Council, and that's live in 4 other local authorities right now and being rolled out to another 3, so that's 8 in total. It didn't quite follow the model that I've described insofar as it wasn't actually live in South Dublin before it got rolled out elsewhere, and so there were some bugs and things like that to be ironed out at the very start, but they're all being worked through. It's our most successful one so far because obviously there's a pressing deadline for meeting blended working deadlines and quotes. Just to mention some other things that are in the pipeline, and it's good to see the first one here got mentioned at the very start in the opening addresses, the Fingal chatbot. So Fingal are working with a number of local authorities in the development of a chatbot, and it will be available to all other local authorities after that's done. And then there's work being done on an annual ethics register or returns. So that's a really onerous process at the moment. It's a manual process in a lot of places. A number of authorities have digitised this, but not in a manner that's easily shareable. So Monaghan and DLR are working on something which will go live in January and will be available to others next year. I'm just going to just mention MyCoco, which some of you may have heard of. It's a kind of a separate but very related initiative, which deserves its own presentation, and which I'm not going to go into now because it would take too long. But it's a form of Build to Share focusing on public-facing services involving an ongoing collaboration between 10 local authorities and being led by Monaghan. So it's live in Monaghan right now, and other local authorities are going live with aspects of it in early 2023. So what's next? We have a governance board that's just been established and will be meeting fairly shortly. It reports into the ICT committee. Marketing is incredibly important, so we get this message out there, get new systems in and get people using the systems. Days like this are very important for that kind of thing. And then it's really important to mention that you still need local IT resources to manage these projects, to get them up and running. So the LGMA are leading out on the development of a new ICT strategy for the sector, and it will include things like Build to Share and also resourcing, which hopefully will address those things. I've flown through all of this. There's way more details. We have a website, and when the document pack is shared, I'll let you know how to access the website because it is a closed one. But for each of the systems that I've mentioned, it includes videos on how to use them and how to sell them to your users and so on. It gives technical guides about what needs to be done to implement them. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephen. I think huge innovation in that presentation, and I hope all of you here and all of you watching online will go back to your management team and tell them that you're going to be able to save them money straight away by telling them all about these Build to Share products that are out there. As I say, I have to say, in the civil service, we've seen huge buy-in and huge benefits from them. So it's a bit of a win-win, to be honest. So thanks, Stephen. Great to hear about them. This is our penultimate presentation today, comes from Leitrim County Council. Lawrence Kennedy is Senior Staff Officer in Corporate Services, and Mary Quinn, who's Director of Services in the Corporate Services Community and Cultural Services at Leitrim. And they're here to tell us about Leitrim Connected, an app development project that unifies communications from Leitrim County Council, Fire and Emergency Services, An Garda Síochána and community alert groups. The project was initiated by the Joint Policing Committee, and it'll bring together council communications relating to emergencies, infrastructure works, council initiatives, Garda communications under one app-based system which will be free to the public. In such a busy world where it's often hard to kind of cut through with the important messages, I think this is a really interesting initiative and really looking forward to hearing about it. So I'll hand you over to Mary and Lawrence.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Fiona, for the introduction. and thank you to NOAC for the invite to Leitrim to present on our project, Leitrim Connected. As Fiona has outlined in her introduction, this was a project that was initiated through our joint policing committee, and I might, sorry, the beeper. I might set out just the background and context, and then I'll hand you over to Lawrence to speak about where we're at in terms of implementation, etc. So just in terms of the context and the challenge, and some of you will be familiar with Leitrim and more of you won't, but I suppose in terms of the county, it's, as you can see, a long and narrow county, predominantly rural with 1,590 square metres in area. We border with Donegal, Cavan, Longford, Roscommon, Sligo, and then with Fermanagh in Northern Ireland. Our population, per the preliminary census recently announced, is 35,088 people, the smallest in the country. But, and with that, we have a very dispersed population, with 89.3% living in rural areas, and our age dependency rate being the second highest in the country at 62.6%. And I suppose in the context of this project and feeding into how it emerged through our age-friendly initiative, and we're on our third age-friendly strategy, an ongoing issue for our older citizens in the county is feeling safe in their homes and having that sense of security. And while, and I'll show you this on the next slide, our crime statistics might not be in the high levels compared to some other counties, perception is still reality for people. So in terms of our statistics, burglaries in Leitrim in 2019 were 54, and our year-to-date in 22 is at 24. Thefts were at 58 in 2019, and the year-to-date 40. And assaults in Leitrim in 2019 were at 97, and the year-to-date 96. And we're just using the 2019 as the benchmark, given the 2 years that have passed since, in terms of the impact that it had on how we were living. So in terms of, I suppose, the discussions that took place at the Leitrim Joint Policing Committee, and having regard to, I suppose, our objective to enhance the crime prevention and public safety work of An Garda Síochána, the community sector and Leitrim County Council, by adopting a collaborative approach to make Leitrim a safe place to live, particularly in the rural parts of the county. And I suppose that objective is at the heart of what we do through the JPC. And in terms of how we were operating, Leitrim County Council responsible for alerts in relation to various emergencies, severe weather warnings, flood alerts, road closures, forest fires. The Gardaí, I suppose, responsible for the community alerts, the text alert areas, road closures, and we were operating independently of each other. And for the Gardaí, the challenge for them was that while there was 17 community alert areas in Leitrim, over half of those were no longer active. The Gardaí had been restricted in sending alerts, with administration and cost overheads being the biggest reasons for closure and restricted use. And the situation had deteriorated over a number of years. And from our own perspective, and while I am aware that many counties have alerter systems in place, at the point we had no centralised system from which citizens or residents of Leitrim can receive updates in relation to emergency road closures, temporary road hazards, or severe weather alerts. So I suppose we were at the point of deciding what solution would we put in place as an organisation. And then, with the need for a simple, effective way of getting a crime prevention, public safety, or a community alert message out on a single platform to citizens on a county-wide basis being identified by the Joint Policing Committee, we decided that our approach should be one of collaboration with An Garda Síochána, with potential for expansion wider to community groups through different phases of the project. And on that basis, we then sought and were grateful to receive deeper funding under the Innovation Fund, and we have progressed from there. And I will now hand you over to Lawrence to tell you that part of the story. Thank you very much. You might work better than me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lawrence Kennedy. When we were commencing our project, we first established a cross-agency steering group with membership from An Garda Síochána, Leitrim's Joint Policing Committee, Munch na Tíre, the Emergency Services and representatives from our Roads Department. We established a list of requirements and essential features that we deemed were critical to delivering a valuable service to the people of Leitrim and to addressing many of the challenges that we were facing. Over a series of meetings, we refined a list of requirements and features we felt are necessary to a successful project. Part of this process involved reviewing potential products available in the marketplace so that the steering group was informed and understood the potential of a unified communication system. After publishing our tender and carefully reviewing the responses, the contract was awarded to Pinpoint Alerts Limited, who proposed a bespoke solution based on their Map Alerter system. When establishing our list of essential requirements for a new system, we kept the people of Leitrim front and centre. Sorry, that hasn't changed. Or has it? It has, apologies. It is vital that we aim to engage people of all ages and backgrounds. Keeping that in mind, our system needed to be easy to use and include the functionality to reach people through different channels of communication. Instead of just adding a communication system and potentially another layer of complexity to our teams and processes, we aimed to introduce efficiencies and sought a system that would integrate automatically with our council's social media platforms. Our market research also identified a number of potential systems that would allow for automatic alerts from Irish Water and Met Éireann, for example, meaning alerts would go straight through our system to the people of Leitrim without waiting or requiring any intervention from people in the council. To maximise the potential of a new system and, of course, the audience that we wish to communicate with, we sought a system that is flexible and whose features we can expand over time. And if that wasn't challenging enough, as Mary has already mentioned, we needed to incorporate and reinvigorate community alert groups throughout the county. Keeping our list of essential requirements in mind, our system was not going to be a standard off-the-shelf product. We were not just aiming to merge the traditional counselling alert system with the community alert system. We wanted to aim higher, and we were really starting off from a good position where we had a blank slate. As you can see on this side, Phase 1 of our project rollout, which is contained within the blue circle, merges the traditional council alert system with the community alert system. And when this phase is successfully completed and all parties are comfortable operating this Leitrim Connected, we will introduce the flexibility and additional features that we sought. And by this I mean we will add special interest categories, which will allow members of the public to sign up to groups that are relevant to their lives, such as arts groups, tidy town groups, or youth groups. This will allow Leitrim County Council to engage the widest possible audience and, more importantly, a new audience within the county. As the system will be integrated with our social media platforms, teams within the council will not have any extra layers of administration. They will actually realise efficiencies. This approach will provide the people of Leitrim with targeted, relevant information relating to events and initiatives, whereas previously we may not have engaged those people at all. Taking you through some of the features and benefits of our system, it is compatible with both Android and iOS devices. The service is free to members of the public and community alert groups alike, and people will be able to choose to receive alerts through a dedicated app, email, or traditional text messaging. By integrating with the council's social media, we will, of course, have automatic alerts features, bringing the efficiencies I've previously mentioned. The system is easy to use for both administrators and members of the public alike. Innovative map-based features will allow the council to issue targeted alerts to a specific area, and a user of the system will be able to set up alerts, for example, their route to work or their school run, which will inform people of potential issues before they start their journey. I hope that this slide shows you how quick and easy it is for responders to issue an alert. We obviously want our first responders to be able to focus on their critical jobs. So by entering a keyword and a road identification number and clicking send, a first responder can simply drop their device and concentrate on their job. And within 3 minutes, the system will have sent critical information to members of the public, which will potentially save lives. Providing some more detail relating to user benefits, as I've already mentioned, the system is easy to use, subscribe to, and it's free. But more importantly, in a digital age where people already have multiple apps and information sources on their devices, this is a single system that will provide news and information from multiple agencies and sources. Users will be able to pick and choose categories of alerts If a user has no interest in weather alerts, for example, they can just turn these off, and that doesn't require any intervention from council employees. People will be able to amend the settings on their own devices. This will bring greater relevance to the type of alerts that people receive to their devices. We believe these features and the flexibility will increase user buy-in and hopefully the system's relevance to people's lives in Leitrim. This image should show you the beginning and how straightforward the sign-up process is. Users can simply enter their Air code, or by clicking on a map, select their general location, or they can use the dedicated app to fill in their details. We're trying to minimize the amount of information that we gather from people. So somebody only needs to give us their name and mobile number if that's all they wish to use. If they need to use the map-based features, they will need to provide an Air code. Or people can choose to add in their email address as well. And people can choose or amend these details at their time of choosing. Again, they don't need to engage the council to do any of this. And just to give you an example of the customization features, if somebody decides to add their email address to their account, they can then amend alert settings. So in terms of planning alerts, they may not want those alerts going directly through to and pinging their devices. They can send them to their email account and review that information at a place and time of their choosing. Our app, website and system development is almost complete, and we plan to formally launch Leitrim Connected at a JPC meeting early in the new year. It is essential that our media and communications campaign to inform the public about the system is user-focused and articulates the flexibility, customization features and ease of use that the system will bring to people's lives. And we also intend to leverage initiatives that groups in the county currently roll out to people, maybe to help elderly people who aren't comfortable with modern technology to improve their digital skills and start using the app features that are built into the system. We will be engaging community policing officers in Leitrim, the PPN, Age Friendly Leitrim and teams within the council to support the rollout so that we can get in contact with the widest possible audience and reinvigorate communities and groups within the county. And once we've completed phase 1 of Leitrim Connected, we will deliver on the innovative features of the system and provide the people of the county a diverse range of customisable and relevant information. And just to give you a quote from Superintendent Chris Gogan of Leitrim Garda District, the proposed Leitrim Connected system will be of benefit from An Garda Síochána in County Leitrim, as it will enable the Gardaí to issue in a timely manner targeted alerts to community members, notifying of incidents that could potentially impact the community and its residents. And from Councillor Enda McGlone, the chairperson of Leitrim Joint Policing Committee, Leitrim Connected is a significant and welcome communication channel for the communities of Leitrim. It will allow for expedient communication of Garda alerts and other emergency or weather-related incidents to residents of communities throughout the county. It will provide a new and enhanced services to communities, and in doing so will remove many of the financial or administrative burdens experienced by community groups in maintaining existing systems. And our ambition at the start of this project was to implement an innovative best practice solution with potential for replication by other authorities. And thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Lawrence and Mary. Very interesting to see that again. Communications is a constant challenge, but I know, like a lot of people, you have so many different apps and different ways of getting information now. It'd be great to have that kind of centralised in one place. So I really look forward to seeing it being launched and the very best of luck with it. Finally today, I'd like to welcome Niamh McCarthy, who's the National Coordinator of the Emergency Vacant Housing Delivery Ukraine Unit in the Local Government Management Agency, to present to us on the local authority response to the Ukraine humanitarian crisis. So as we know, since the 24th of February 2022, over 8 million Ukrainians have been displaced, with over 50,000 presenting in Ireland. I think I saw a figure of 58,000 this morning, actually. So while we saw over the weekend, I think, just how challenging this is for our country, local authorities with many staff involved right across the sector have provided significant support to national government in responding to the accommodation and other needs of those arriving from Ukraine, and have been key to the provision of emergency centres, stepping up the community response forums and ensuring that the vulnerable people arriving are welcomed into our communities. So huge work has been done. Due to the scale of the crisis, local authorities have adopted innovative approaches to the delivery of services and supports. So this presentation will focus on highlighting a range of those best practices right across the sector. So welcome to Niamh.
Thanks, Fiona. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today, and I'm with Aidan Bly, who's the Director of Service for Municipal Services in Dunleary Rathdown. And he's going to take over in a couple of minutes to talk about the innovative approach that Dunleary took to setting up the Ballyogan Rest Centre, which I think is inspirational, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Unfortunately, it would be great to talk about the 31 local authorities and the range of best practice innovation that they've used around the response to this crisis. But I'm just going to give you a whistle-tour stop of what they have done to the single biggest humanitarian crisis we've had. To put that into context, we've had 12 million Ukrainians have left the country. They've fled their country. I had 56,000 were in the country, but Fiona has just said it's 58,000 now as of this morning. 43,200 of these are seeking accommodation from the state, of which 36,200 are in commercial and serviced accommodation, 1,000 are in rest centres, and 5,000 are in pledged properties. With the current trends, it's expected that we'll have a serious deficit around beds by the end of Q1 2023. So I suppose the challenge is huge for local authorities. And while local authorities, government are driving the overall policy, local authorities are at the front and centre of the crisis. And they are responding with huge innovation to adapt to this problem. Local authorities, what local authorities have done is they've set up emergency rest centres. 36 rest centres have been set up across the country since March 2022, with over 2,148 beds provided at the time. There are currently, sorry, my apologies, go back. The community forum has been mobilised in each local authority. Local authorities have identified 475 vacant units to progress to provide a refurb programme with the Department of Housing and the Department of Children. And local authorities have worked with the Irish Red Cross pledge process. So they have assessed the 10,500 vacant and shared pledges that have been sent to them. And they have worked either within their own local authorities to move beneficiaries into pledged properties, or they've worked with in 19 local authorities, they've worked with implementing partners to support the implementing partners in the moving of beneficiaries into pledged accommodation. And as of yesterday, the local authorities are going to be running a new pledge call, or a new vacant house call, and we're going to be progressing with that. I suppose to look at best practice, there's probably 3 phases that I'm going to focus on. The first one is the react phase. So this is around the setting up of those rest centres. And this has been streamlined, and we have progressed an awful lot since then. So this is 2 examples of rest centres that were set up originally. You'll see that there was a lot of So what was given out to staff was there was advice sheets were developed for staff in facilities receiving and how to prepare to receive their guests. There was the mapping of all the services that are provided at local levels. The assessment process, you can see the assessment process in the photograph there, evolved over the 7 months to fully identify the needs in terms of health, education, language, jobs, qualifications, etc. And then that we had communication tools, apps were used to provide for challenges around language barriers, etc. All the local authorities developed welcome packs for the Ukrainians coming into the local area, normally with the local development company. I am conscious that I'm kind of giving an overview. We'll try and drill down a little bit. These packs then were tailored for individual rest centres. They had printed informational material. They provided multilingual format, and they had the provision of sanitary packs, the provision of supermarket vouchers. The likes of Kerry developed a step-by-step guide for the Ukrainians with all the agencies who inputted into that and provided information on the right to work, social welfare, health, education, childcare, driving licences, banking, travel, passports and other available services within the local authority. Cork City developed a Bags of Welcome initiative. So what they used was a dormant account programme which was targeted at children in direct provision, rest centres and sheltered accommodation. So they provided yellow and blue bags to these people with wordless books in it to encourage reading and to try and encourage the needs of the Ukrainians. Information leaflets were translated across all the local authorities into Ukrainians, and there was hosting webinars provided for communities who were going to do hosting and to try and encourage people to host around the pledge process. Most local authorities have web portals that have up-to-date information, and they have dedicated emails. So as you can see, this is the likes of the information that was provided. So that's around fire safety, and you can just say the web portal that was available there. Around the support phase, as I said, the community forums were established, and I suppose the demand-led nature of the forum in relation to the refugees arriving into Ireland, into the different areas of the country, meant that the model had to be constantly evolving and required regular reviews to ensure that the needs of all the Ukrainians were met. And what I mean by that is that the most recent arrivals needed much more supports than the arrivals who had come in March and April. Libraries played a key role. They provided free online language classes, conversational English classes, Ukrainian storytelling, arts workshops, free Wi-Fi, scanning and printing, books in Ukraine. Local authorities, transport. Local authorities worked with Local Link to set up new routes to support centres. But in tangent with that, Fingal brought in bleeper bikes to the accommodation centres to provide free bike service. And Limerick set up a bicycle hub where they worked with the Active Travel. They got funding from the Active Travel. They provided facilities to take in bicycles, repair the bicycles, and provide them for the beneficiaries so that they had actually access to transport. On Garda Síochána, the first bicycles that were provided were 19 bicycles that were recovered from on Garda Síochána. So I suppose there was huge involvement around transport, and then the whole area of agency signposting at that local level was critical. So many local authorities recruited integration development officers, and that was to ensure that all stakeholders had provided for better integration. Then the community phase. I think it's difficult to actually explain the scale of the engagement and the best practice and innovation that was embraced around the whole area of the community phase. There was national play dates, we had summer camps, there was classes, there was Ukrainian fun days for families, there was Festival in the Van initiative where a van came out to the local authority and provided a festival type scenario. Mná Agora, the women laughing, adjusted their activities to become the focal point or the hub, the pop-up shop, the skills, the sharing meeting, all were provided by local authorities. Yoga classes, Zumba classes were all embraced and provided by the local authorities. This is the Mná Agora, their pop-up shop. That's the first baby who was born in Ireland. And this is the festival night that was carried out recently. I suppose I was only going to provide a quick whistle-stop tour. I'm going to pass you over now to Aidan Bly, who's going to talk about the set-up and establishment of the Ballyogan Rest Centre. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Niamh, and thanks for inviting me here today. I'm going to, I suppose, through a series of photos, talk you through the Ballyogan Temporary Regional Rest Centre. And I suppose why we call it a regional rest centre, for major emergency purposes, we sit in the East region with our colleagues from the other councils in Dublin, as well as Wicklow and Kildare. And I suppose when the Ukrainian crisis, when the refugee crisis began, the region had anywhere from 6 to 7 or 8 rest centres open at a time. And it was usually difficult to manage all of that, and the civil defence and all of the various other volunteers were very, very stretched. So it was decided that we would set up a centre, a large centre, consolidate resources as such on a regional basis. So I suppose with my team, I looked at several I suppose from the start we needed obviously the chief executive and the councillors on board as well, and I think from day one really we wanted to show leadership in that regard and do as much as we could in terms of helping people. So we looked at a number of options, and Ballyogan was the one that stuck out to me. I suppose the minute I walked up onto the site, I thought we could do something with this. In terms of the advantages of the site, it was a site that DLR owned. Sorry, I'll flick on to, yeah. So that's a drone shot of the site itself. Large site, it's a site that DLR owned. It was a former refuge bailing centre, hadn't been used in quite a number of years. So it was a site we owned. The site was empty. It was close to amenities, which was key. Lewis across the road. We had a leisure centre down the road, done stores, shops, all of that type of stuff was in walking distance. And as I said, Lewis, so people could get in and out of town as well. One of the big, I suppose, disadvantages, the site itself is quite rough and ready as such. It was very industrial. We were worried about bad PR at the time because of its former use, but to be fair, I think we felt the minute we saw it that we could actually work with the site and do a lot with it to make it a comfortable place for people. That gives you a sense. The building itself is split into two large warehouse rooms as such. That just gives you a sense of one of them there. So it's a huge facility, very, very high ceilings. It would have been very, very difficult to heat, very industrial looking, which is why we came up with a slightly different solution. So in terms of the plan, there, I suppose once I pulled the team together to deliver this, they just give a sense of a lot of the key tasks that we had to go through, our planning boards as such. I suppose I put a team together to deliver this, and we based ourselves up on site in Ballyogan, and we based ourselves there until it was delivered. So I suppose the plan was to deliver a temporary rest centre that would accommodate up to 300 Ukrainian refugees for short periods of 1 to 3 days. The idea in terms of the existing building and its surrounds, you saw the building, it's quite industrial, was to transform it into a safe, comfortable and appropriately designed refugee accommodation centre. We were going to do it through the erection of marquees within the structure of the building. By doing so, we would make it easier to manage, easier to heat, which was key. And also, I suppose the marquees are very flexible. Rather than having one joint or two joint rooms, if you're breaking it down into a number of marquees, it's a lot easier to manage. And all of the marquees were connected through interconnected walkways, covered walkways, to services outside, so kitchen, canteen facilities, the reception area, recreation rooms. They were all outside the building in marquees, but they were all connected by covered walkways. That just gives, I suppose that was the early site plan that we worked to. So you can see within the confines of the building there, we've three on one side, two on the other side. 5 large marquees. Each of those marquees, which sit within the building, can sleep in approximately around 60 people each. And then we have, I don't know how the pointer works, is it? Sorry. Just to on the top there, the yellow image, you can see there's canteen facilities. We've a reception area there. We've recreation rooms on the bottom as well, toilet facilities, showers, and recreation rooms for kids, for teenagers, etc. So, and as I said, they're all connected through covered walkways, so it felt like a canopied village as such. Once you're inside the actual marquees and the canopies, you don't sort of see that industrial structure as such. So it was quite a good solution. That gives you an idea in terms of the construction. So the timescale was a very, as I said, we were in a situation where there was numerous rest centres open across the region at the time, and resources were really stretched in terms of volunteers. So we set ourselves a very ambitious timetable, and initially that was we wanted to have this open in 3 weeks, to have 180 beds open in 3 weeks, and to have full capacity within 5 weeks. There was going to be sort of 2 phases to it. I broke it down into 2 phases, obviously construction and ongoing management. So I had a number of engineers from my water and drainage team work on the construction side of the house, and then the sports development officer actually, who's a lot of experience in events and things like that, I pulled him into the team to look after the sort of ongoing management piece and the wraparound services piece as well. And I suppose what makes local authorities, I suppose, so unique is we've such a diversity of staff and such a range of services, as was described by many people earlier, that we were able to pull on lots of experience through our community teams, libraries teams, arts teams, engineering skills, all of the various skill sets that exist in the council. So I suppose we had a core team, but we were able to pull on a lot of other experience. That gives you a sense. Actually, on the lower part of the building, there was a big concrete plinth there, and the guys had to. They spent 2 weeks every day for 12 hours jackhammering that big plinth out, so we get the marquees in. The picture to the right there is one of the fire escapes, and again, we were dealing with the walls were between 2 and 3 foot thick, so it was a huge undertaking to hammer through so we could get the fire escapes in. Obviously, in terms of construction, we needed an emergency executive order to allow us to do this, particularly in terms of, I suppose, being able to start the construction, but also in terms of procurement as well. We needed to get the contractors on site immediately with such an ambitious timetable to get this done. We had to get multiple contractors on site at once. It had to be screened for AA and EAIR, and we had to go through all the building control regs as well, so which was challenging. But as I said, we pulled on lots of experience and skills across the council to get it done. That gives you a sense. That's the first marquee going up in the large hall that you would have seen earlier. So it shows that actually gives a real scale to how big the actual building is. So in that particular hall, we were able to fit 3 marquees of that size. And yeah, as I said, up to 60 people in each marquee. And then in the lower section of the building, I'm not an engineer myself, but I have to say, hats off to our engineers. They did an incredible job to maximise space there. What a perfect fit inside that building. That particular marquee, it's actually split in two within, and again, it holds 60 people in each, so there's 120 people in that marquee. And that, I suppose, shows the site built, again, a drone shot of the site, which you can see replicates, I suppose, the plan that we showed there earlier, where you can see, you can't see the sleeping accommodation, obviously it's inside the building, but you can see some of the connected marquees outside the building. The site is run, obviously, on a 24-hour basis. We have 2 managers. The setup we decided was we wanted a manager to run the facilities side of things, make sure the facilities run well. Obviously, with that many people in the building, and particularly with short stays, you have a lot of people coming and going, and the facilities get very, very heavily used, from showers, toilets, etc. But also, we appointed a manager to look at the social care side of things as well. From day one, I suppose, as well, we wanted this to be a very comfortable place to stay, even though they were for short stays. It was felt, I previously worked myself on the Fatima Mansions project, and I knew the importance of the social care side of when you do anything to do with housing, I suppose. So we from day one, we decided we wanted beds and we wanted really, really good facilities, even though they were for short stays. People are distressed, they're obviously having to leave their home in a rush. And we wanted to, I suppose, not add to their stress. We were conscious, we were offered camp beds and things like that, but we thought, no, you know what, if we put in real beds, put in facilities for kids, it might make the stay a little bit nicer and, I suppose, alleviate some of the burden. The document there on the right is actually one of the documents referred to earlier. Our community team and Southside Partnership worked on that, and it was a brilliant document, translated into Russian and Ukrainian, and it gave a list of all of the various services and key contacts and things to do in the local area as well. So all of our guests would have got that, and we had that ready before our first refugees arrived in the centre. Again, just to give a sense of facilities, a lot of the refugees are arriving with some arrive with nothing, to be honest with you. Some are coming with suitcases, but we've had an awful lot of people arrive at the centre with just the clothes on their back. So having washing facilities is really, really key. We actually have two areas where we can do laundry. Actually, uniquely in Ukraine, they don't seem to use tumble dryers, so we've actually had to train them how to use tumble dryers. But they are used all day, every day. We've gone through quite a few washing machines at this point. But again, as I said, when you don't have a lot of clothes, we need to have the facilities there for people. And you can see the photo on the right there is the reception area. We staff at 24 hours a day, as I said. We decided early on that we wanted staff in the centre who had a background in social care or health care, because we were dealing with such vulnerable people. So we managed to get staff through an agency, a healthcare agency, and they're all Garda vetted. They've all worked in nursing home settings or social care settings. So they've been a great addition to the team up there, and they do a great job up there as well. So sorry. Yeah, we got again just to soften the look, because it was as you could see by the earlier pictures, it was a warehouse setting. So we got an artist in to do a bit of art around the place. We put in basketball nets. We drew out the pavement for hopscotch and things like that. We set up a computer room there for teenagers, sort of a teenage space with video games, Apple computers. They've chess, they've other board games. We set up a space for younger children with age-appropriate toys. The amount of bikes we've gone through, we've a couple of very generous local bike shops, plus a lot of people living locally who continue to donate bikes to us. So we have allowed actually a lot of the kids get attached to a particular bike. So when they do leave, we've sort of allowed them to take it away, but we've a continuous stream of bikes coming through. And it's actually wonderful, because when you come up on site, despite being a refugee centre and the sad stories and all of that, when you actually come up on site in Ballyogan, the first thing you're hit with is a load of kids cycling bikes or on scooters. They nearly knock you over, and smiling and playing basketball. A lot of the parents be playing basketball with the kids. So I suppose despite the tragedy, we're trying to make it as happy a place as you can under the circumstances. In terms of classes, Niamh mentioned classes, like we regularly have dance, yoga, Tai Chi, all of those various classes. English classes, obviously. We do try where possible to get as many of them off site. We did in the beginning, I suppose we did a lot of classes on site, but we felt then that a lot of, particularly in the early days, a lot of refugees weren't leaving the site. So we decided we've a leisure centre not too far away up in Samuel Beckett up on the Ballyogan Road. So we started to do a lot of classes up there, which was great for getting people off site, and they then started to explore the area a little bit more. So and again, our community team were fantastic in sort of leading on that, on our sports team. That's just some of the games in the kids' rooms. They're mad about chess. Obviously, the sort of younger kids' room as well. We've lots of little games, teddies, things like that, and it's a nice space for them. A bit of an escape, I suppose, from the harsh reality that they're in. I suppose just to sort of sum up, in terms of best practice, we had to set this up in, well, I said 3 weeks, it actually took us 4, we were a week late, but we had to set this up so quickly that a lot of our best practice we've had to sort of do after the fact. So I suppose since then, to run a centre of that size, you need policies, you need procedures for staff, for the guests. So we've implemented several policies and procedures, which we've also translated into Russian and Ukrainian for our guests. And stuff like, well, I suppose it's a given, we Garda vet everyone who works on site, health and safety risk assessments, but we've a safeguarding policy, children first training for all our staff, code of conduct for staff, complaints policy, we've house rules for drugs, alcohol and antisocial behaviour, clear job descriptions for everyone. Like, to be fair, I suppose when we started, I had to get people into the centre and I didn't necessarily have a job description for them, so we sort of had to make it up afterwards and tease it out. in terms of best practice, how these things work well, a multi-agency approach, clear communication between all agencies. We have our community response forum, which the chief executive chairs. We were meeting every week. It's bi-weekly now, but there's been great engagement from everyone on that. And as I said, it's worked really well to date. Doing as many activities outside the centre as possible. We've done lots of trips to Airfield. We've done trips to the zoo, the circus, trips to Crow Park. We managed to get some tickets for Garrett Brooks, things like that. We've done our best to try and get as many sort of activities for people as possible, particularly, I suppose, for families, people with young children, you know. We're still evolving, and that's one of the keys. I think, Niamh, you mentioned it as well. When you're dealing with so many people, and there's definitely a difference between the people who are coming now versus the people who came a number of months ago, so you do have to evolve. We're still evolving up there. We've had to build COVID rooms in the interim. We've had to, we're looking now actually at building a homework club for children, and we're looking at building a workspace for adults, and we've managed to get Microsoft, who've been very generous throughout the last few months, to they're putting together a training course for some of our guests as well, with a view to trying to get them into the jobs market. So as I said, we're still evolving. We're not without our problems. I think every refugee centre, there are issues, but I suppose once you have your key policies and procedures and your community response forum, with everyone working together, there's sort of no problem that we kind of can't deliver on or address as such. I suppose to date, just to wrap up, we've had over 2,100 people stay with us in Ballyogan, which is brilliant. We've had one birth on site, lots of birthday parties, things like that. We've had an awful lot of our guests, despite the fact that you've 60 people sharing a room together. We've had an awful lot of the people who stay with us who have not wanted to leave, you know, and it's because of that, I suppose, that sense of safety and security. And despite the fact that they're all sharing rooms, we have a really nice setup in terms of, as I said, play spaces for children, activities for children, reading rooms for adults, and all of the various other facilities. And just finally, the Irish Refugee Council and the UN Refugee Agency have called out. They've been regular visitors actually to the rest centre in Ballyogan, and they have cited us as best practice around Europe. So, which is a testament to the wider team in DLR and everyone who works up in the centre. So, listen, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Niamh and Aidan. I think, when it was a fitting example, I think, to finish our session on today. I think it shows, and it's interesting, I think, looking back to what Stephen was talking to us about, and he showed us the 1,200 odd services that the local authorities are responsible for providing. And before February, March this year, this wasn't one of them. So I think it just goes to show exactly the role that local government plays on behalf of the state. I think anyone that's been involved in this in the local government sector can be justifiably proud of the work that they've done in the last 6 or 7 months. It's been an incredible response and has made such a difference to people's lives. So well done to all the staff. I know there's people watching in and people here who would have been involved as well. So this is real public service, I think, and great innovation too, which is what we're talking about today. So look, that's the end of our presentations from today. So we've got all of our presenters from the second session here now. So very happy to take some questions from the floor. And I know we probably have some questions online as well, I'm sure. So any questions here in the room first for any of our presenters? Yeah, I have one here.
And thanks to all the presenters. It's just one question for Brian in relation to the project in Tipperary. You mentioned that one developer had done a deal with Lidl and they're developing on site. The machinery and business, how did you get them to move out? Did you have to provide some sort of incentive, or did they have an alternative plan themselves? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. They were they were a family business that had been there for generations. They were conscious of the fact that they couldn't stay where they were, and they were looking to expand because they were doing really well. So it was a coming together of minds of, listen, you have to move, let's work together, planning with them where they should go. And that took time to identify the right site. And then encourage them to make the site available to us So even in making the application, rather than agree a price, we agreed a price per acre because we didn't know how much we needed. So we agreed a rough price so we could make the application. They're happy to stand over it. They would probably get a lot more now. But as I mentioned in my presentation, they're invested in the town and they want to see the town thrive, and they know that they couldn't stay where they were. So yeah, they were very generous.
Thanks, Brian. Any other questions in the room? Right. Eddie, do we probably have some questions from our online?
Thanks, Fiona. Just for the Build to Share, first of all, to say a lot of positive commentary again online about all the presentations, folks. So thanks for that and well done. Stephen, on the Build to Share, a question as to what's the challenge? What's the biggest challenge that program is going to face in building it out?
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. I mentioned a few of them. I think that it's clear because the most successful one so far has been the blended working application, because there was a pressing deadline for it, even though the other applications which have been developed by a number of local authorities are very attractive and do a great job. So I think that one of the challenges is going to be having the resources in the local authorities themselves to help implement them. Lots of them are relatively simple to implement, except for the document management one. That's a big beast, admittedly. But you do need the users to have the time to be able to commit to it, to onboarding it and training it, and to change their work practices. And you do need IT people in the local authorities to be able to lead on the projects as well. So I think that and the whole PR, getting the message out there, getting new applications in, getting new things in from other local authorities as well, so that there's more and more to offer. That's it.
Thanks, Stephen. And one for Niamh and the Ukrainian project. What does the negative publicity, similar to what happened last weekend, how does that impact, if you like, the spirit and the morale across the sector? Because, there's some fantastic work happening, obviously, out there.
Yeah, I think that it's having a negative effect, and I see a few of the leads from the local authority. I think it's having a negative impact. But local authorities are hugely resilient, but it is having a very negative impact.
And then, lastly then for Mary and for Lawrence, I suppose, what was the main challenge in the delivery of the project to date?
It's gone really well so far. I suppose bringing so many agencies together from different backgrounds who are delivering different services in the county. That was probably challenging at the start, but we recognised it was essential to set up that cross-agency steering group and get input from people in different sectors throughout the county. But it's come together really well, and people have worked really well together, so we're kind of delighted with how things have progressed.
I think that's it, Fiona, now, and we're running tight on time, so we might cap it at that.
Okay. Thanks, folks, and thanks for the questions. So that's the end of our presentations from today, and thanks to everybody for their engagement. Hugely positive and motivating, I think, to see the range of projects that's underway. So we're going to just finish off, I think, with a few words from the new chair of the CCMA, Mr. Frank Curran, is going to close the event for us.
Thanks, Fiona. Can I just say, for starters, it's great to be back at live events. If nothing else, for the networking that goes on. We've kind of missed that, I think, throughout the COVID years. And I think this is a particularly important event because it showcases the good practice in the excellent services that local authorities provide to their citizens. But it also allows us to share successful initiatives and ensure that local government is recognised as the most innovative public service in Ireland. And, we've seen during COVID how agile we are as organisations and our ability to adapt. We've managed to protect ourselves and our staff, continue to deliver our services, and you've seen housing, planning, everything delivered right throughout COVID. And we've also protected our communities, the business communities, and through our community call, etc. And then during the Ukrainian humanitarian crisis, building temporary rest centres, providing interim accommodation, convening our community fora, and coordinating assistance, etc. But, there's other challenges out there as well. Two of the biggest ones, I would say, are climate action and housing. And you can see innovation all the time. Active travel, 15-minute neighbourhoods, developing, especially with ourselves, compact growth along transport corridors, smart towns and cities, electric vehicles, reducing carbon emissions from our buildings. And in terms of housing, again, a lot of innovation going on through regeneration, mixed tenure developments, upgrading heritage buildings, living over the shop, etc. And it's really important, I think, that we continue this spirit of innovation, because that's what attracts people into us. The Generation Z now, they're not attracted by a permanent and pensionable job, and research has shown they want an opportunity to be innovative. They want opportunities for learning and development. They want to foster their leadership skills. They want to have a sense of making a contribution to society. And if people are leaving the exit interviews from Google and Microsoft, that's what they're getting, that people want to make their contribution to society. So there's great opportunities there for us to get people in. And you can see it. We have our induction every Monday morning now. It's great to see the 20-somethings coming back. So today, I think we had excellent examples of best practice and innovation in the areas of digital first, climate action, communications, and the response to the humanitarian crisis. We saw from Cork City Council how to enhance our capacity in terms of cyber security, from Limerick City and County Council on how to bring modern technological solutions to tackle the challenges of data and process governance, the use of drones by Dublin City Council for emergency response, surveying and mapping the build to share concept from Dún Laoghaire County Council, which is a key pillar of the national and sectoral ICT strategies. We're presented with Leitrim Connected, demonstrating how to unify communications with the County Council, Fire and Emergency Services, and Garda Síochána, and the community alert systems. And specifically, in terms of climate action, we saw Tipperary County Council's Sustainable Energy Centre of Excellence, which acts as an exemplar on how we can live as a low-carbon and climate-resilient community. And of course, from Dún Laoghaire County Council, we got an example of what local authorities are doing in terms of the humanitarian crisis. But these are only a handful of examples of what happens day in, day out, where we're using innovation, delivering excellent services to the public. Just before I conclude, can I thank Cathaoirleach Councillor Pat Fitzpatrick for his welcome this morning, Sean McGowan and the team from Kilkenny County Council, and Anne Tehan and the OPW team here in Kilkenny Castle for hosting this event today in this wonderful setting. Thanks to the Chair of NOAC, Michael McCarthy, and the other members of NOAC for their support and guidance in agreeing the itinerary for today's event. This type of event doesn't just happen. There's lots of planning and organising required to produce today's conference. I'd like to thank the NOAC staff, Claire Gavin, Alan McDermott, John Goldrick, and Val Longmore for their contribution to today's event. I'd also like to thank Paul Dunn, CEO of the LGMA, and his team, especially Eddie, David, Siobhan, Mark, and Billy, for all their hard work in bringing this event together. I'd like to extend my thanks to Claire and Eddie for hosting the event, to the chairs of both sessions, Marianne Cassidy and Fiona Quinn. Thank you for your moderating and excellent question and answer sessions. Thanks to Bridget and the LGMA for this comms support, and to the Brodricks for all the technical support that made this virtual event possible. To all the speakers and presenters, a big thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to contribute to today's event. You have demonstrated that local authorities have the skills and capacity to respond to the challenges that they are called to face, as well as an ability to develop novel solutions to complex problems. To the audience, thank you for listening, and hopefully you've learned something new here today. The event is a good practice event, and as one of its aims is to support knowledge sharing, so perhaps you saw something from today's event that you can replicate in your own local authority, or maybe something from today will set you on a path to developing something innovative for your local authority, and we'll see you presenting here in the coming years. Finally, I'd like to thank Minister Malcolm Noonan for opening today's event, and we look forward to seeing you again next year, and enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much.